Hello, welcome back to our channel. So, in this video, we're going to see, what if Naruto married with Beelzebub Helluva Boss? This is part 1, and subscribe for more amazing content. I request you to check out author and story named A Fish Cake's Hell of a Life Change by Pain 17ification. So please check out. Let's get in video now. Annoyed would be a good word to describe the mood of a certain blonde knucklehead as he trudged along the shores of a beach near a port town in the land of fire. Frustrated would be another word that works. But the best phrase to use would be fucking pissed off. And why is Naruto feeling this way? The short answer is his supposed master, Jiraiya the Toad Sage. Though super pervert would also be a title the man would accept fully with pride. The longer answer is this. Naruto was taken from his home, the Hidden Leaf Village, by Jiraiya for a training trip that was meant to span about 3 years before the duo returned. It was supposed to be spent helping the young man grow as a ninja so that he could be better prepared for the Akatsuki, a group of ninja who abandoned their villages and formed a terrorist mercenary organization with their primary goal being the removal of the bijou from their Jinchuriki. This was especially daunting for Naruto because he was a Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, the strongest of the bijou. One would think that a man as well-informed as Jiraiya, who is known for being a spy master on top of a sage, would be pretty damn focused on making sure his apprentice was prepared to face the Akatsuki when not if they come for him. Unfortunately for Naruto, the man wasted the first year of their trip on teaching Naruto basics that should have been done by the Genin's primary sensei, Kakashi Hatake. Necessary time was spent on teaching Naruto how to combat Jinjutsu, how to improve his chakra control, and how to fight more fluidly instead of bullheading into a battle with nothing but wild swings and mobs of shadow clones. While that could put the first year in a better perspective for supporting Jiraiya, that time would have and should have been chump change if it weren't for the man's practically obsessive need to peep on women and write in his notebook whenever he got the opportunity. It was bad enough that he even flat out ditched Naruto in the middle of their lessons when there was a chance of spying on women. Naruto, having been around perverted instructors for practically his entire career as a ninja, felt that the Toad Sage was the worst of the bunch. Iriko was classified as a closet pervert, being respectable and actually a very nice guy in public, but secretly having perverted thoughts in his head. Kakashi was a more open pervert, blatantly reading erotica in public and unabashedly giving more visually appealing women more attention. Jiraiya was practically a predator, in Naruto's opinion, unashamedly peeping on women in locations where they should feel safe like the bathhouses or natural springs or even hotel rooms. It didn't matter in the slightest to him because nothing was more important to Jiraiya than the inspiration for the next volume of his erotica series. Not even training his apprentice, and that title is used very loosely, was as important to the man as peeping. And that made Naruto fucking pissed off. A whole fucking year wasted on basics when they could have done them in a fraction of the time. And of course, the so-called master ditched his apprentice to peep on beachgoers. So, here he was almost storming down the shoreline in hopes of finding something to vent his frustrations on. He hoped to find a part of the beach away from the people hoping to enjoy themselves. He didn't want to drag them into his problems when they had nothing to do with them. He was pissed off, not an asshole. But despite how far he had already trekked, there was no end to the beachgoers. He supposed that should have been obvious, since it was a day with gorgeous weather, and this port town was famous for bringing in tourists hoping to enjoy the ocean. Sighing in frustrated defeat, Naruto moved up the beach to where it just barely started meeting grassland and sat down to stare at the waves on the horizon. With nothing to do, other than keep practicing basics, his mind was free to think about things he usually preferred to mentally bury. These thoughts centered around how he was always dealt the shittiest hands in his life, and how nobody seemed genuinely willing to give him a chance other than out of some sense of duty or orders from higher-ups. Irika may have been nice to him on occasion, but that wasn't always the case. The man even admitted to it on the night Naruto foolishly listened to Mizuki and stole the Forbidden Scroll. He confessed, with a massive shuriken lodged into his back, that he originally hated Naruto like most of the village did because he was a living reminder of the Kyuubi. He may have turned around, but he was still harsher on him than others. Kakashi flat out sucked as a sensei. Teamwork drills and the beginnings of the tree walking exercise. All he gave Team 7 that day was a demonstration and a smidgen of advice before he left. He may have been recovering, but teaching a team of genin basic chakra control on a mission with a dangerous missing ninja was fucking stupid. Naruto beat Haku on that bridge because he tapped into the power of the QB for the first time. There's no other way he would have won against someone as skilled and efficient as the androgynous young man. Haku had him and Sasuke dead to rights, and they honestly should have died that day. Hell, all of Team 7 should have died that day. Naruto still remembered how exhausted Kakashi was when Gato pulled his double cross on Zabuza and came with a veritable army of mercs. If Zabuza hadn't taken down so many, including Gato, and if Naruto hadn't survived against Haku, the supposed elite Jonin would have been dead, with Tazuna and Sakura being killed, or worse, not long after. However, Jiraiya was probably the worst of the bunch, throwing complicated techniques at Naruto and simply expecting the genin, who had records showing his lack of knowledge, to figure it out. And even then, all the man wanted Naruto to do during that month training for the Chunin exams was to tap into the QB's chakra once again. Once more, Naruto knows he shouldn't have lived that day. The QB had no reason to pay rent, as the Uzumaki so eloquently put it. The Bijou reform after a few years whenever they die. Gaara told him so when the two Jinchuriki talked during Naruto's recovery from his fight against Sasuke. He should have died in that chasm, but the QB saved his ass by supplying him with chakra. Why? Naruto had no clue, but he knew that he owed his life to the Bijou 2 times over. 3 if he counted the fight against Sasuke. Knowing that the fox was responsible for his survival 3 times over because he wasn't properly prepared infuriated Naruto. Looking back, he shouldn't have entered the Chunin exams at all. As much as he despised admitting it, Sasuke was the only member of Team 7 who was prepared for the exams. I'm a fucking joke, he grumbled, self-loathing in his voice as he summarized his ninja career. A joke of a ninja who won because he was one lucky Sanuvabitch with shit tons of chakra that he could blow through with reckless abandon. What am I even doing here? Well, the voice of a young woman spoke up, prompting him to turn and see a pretty brunette in a bikini talking to him. You could come here to enjoy the ocean, to catch some sun, to relax, or... She held up a pair of red plastic cups, gently wiggling one suggestively before offering it to him. You could come with me and hang out with a bunch of us enjoying a beach concert down over there, she suggested, pointing to a group performing on a stage for a crowd of beachgoers. What intrigued Naruto was how inhuman the group looked. The performers looked nothing short of demonic, and the security on the beach in front of the stage was an anthropomorphic wolf-like creature with plenty of muscle to him. I know that people are aware of the crazy kind of shit ninja can pull off, but I would think a music group of demonic-looking people would be pretty intimidating even to them, he mused. I wonder if these people are escaped curse mark victims of Orochimaru. He was delving deeper into his thoughts before the offered red cup was once again held in front of his face, breaking him from them. Come on, the girl egged on. You look like you could use something to help you unwind, and a concert is a great place for that. She smiled when he awkwardly accepted the offered cup. Have a drink, dance a little, and just enjoy yourself. You'd be surprised how much it helps. The sincere offer made him smile, faintly, with a brief chuckle. Thanks, but I think I'll just watch from here. Any other time, I probably would have taken you up on the offer, but I'd really just like to be alone right now. Despite being turned down, she still kept her smile and nodded sympathetically. I can understand that. Sometimes it's just one of those days that really fucks you over. Try a near lifetime of those kinds of days. Naruto fired back, holding the cup in both hands and staring at the liquid within. From the smell, it was obviously alcohol, something he was admittedly hesitant to drink. Damn. Sorry, she replied with a visible cringe. No. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be dumping my problems on you when you're just being nice. Don't let me ruin your fun. Her smile came back, and she leaned forward to place a hand on his shoulder. I know you're a ninja based on that headband you're wearing, but if you're ever in the neighborhood again, hit me up, okay? Naruto, never having had any semblance of girls showing interest in him, naturally blushed faintly at her offer. Shyly nodding, he watched her leave with a faint giggle. No doubt she found his embarrassment cute, but he honestly didn't mind. She was pretty and definitely better company than Sakura, who would rather bash his brains and then show him anything that could resemble interest. His gaze turned to the concert, blue eyes zeroing in on the singer of the group. Despite her being a possible curse mark victim, Naruto couldn't fight how his blush deepened at the sight of her. He estimated that she was taller than his current height, but he still had some growing left. She had an hourglass figure, hot pink skin, and a barbed tail with a black tip. Her head was framed by two black-tipped horns, with the left horn visibly taller than the other. The horns were marked with two black stars on each side. Her eyes were hot pink with yellow sclera, and she had a black heart tattooed under her right eye. She had long ombre-white hair with pink undertones from lighter to darker towards the tips, and a darker pink streak down the length and across the bangs. There was also a red heart-shaped tattoo on her right upper arm, which had a name faintly written within it that had been crossed out with a big black X. Her hair matched her accessorized pink fur coat, under which she wore a tightly fitted white and black mini dress. The dress featured a prominently contrasting X and O pattern on her very developed chest, as well as a star design on the abdomen. For leggings, she wore long black thigh highs with black high heels that had a heart motif and 3 X-shaped cutouts down the sides, revealing her skin beneath. Finishing her look was a pair of round shades with pink heart designs in the lenses that were pushed up and allowed her eyes to be visible. She must have known he was watching her, for she looked his way while singing. He swore her eyes glowed faintly when she smirked at him and sent him a flirty wink. The earlier blush that had faded returned with a vengeance, and he distracted himself by taking a drink of the alcohol that had been given to him. Immediately, he made a face at the taste that hit his tongue. He would never understand why people enjoyed stuff like this, especially Tsunade, who seemed to guzzle it down like dying woman in need of water. He sighed at that, finding that he couldn't enjoy himself with his earlier thoughts dampening his already soured mood. So, one could excuse his surprise when he looked up from his cup and saw what could only be described as a massive orgy happening on the beach in front of the stage, one that didn't seem to bother the music group in the slightest. Worried about something in the alcohol, Naruto numbly reached out his arm with the cup in hand and slowly dumped it on the beach, all while being unable to look away from the shocking scene down below. Having only been around perverted men and their tame vices, save for Jiraiya's predatory peeping, Naruto had zero experience witnessing anything on the level of perversion as what was happening before his eyes. It's either something in the drinks, or this group are doing something to make those people do, that he mused, shaking away his shock for a frown. I better do some investigating. They may be using some sort of jinjutsu based around music, like that red-headed girl we fought while chasing after Sasuke. Standing up, he placed his hands in his pockets and turned around. Making it look like he was leaving, Naruto only walked far enough to leave their viewpoint before he circled around to sneak backstage from behind the stage. All he had to do was wait for the cover of night. Unknown to him, the leader of the group frowned at his departure as she stopped singing and watched the humans continue to fuck one another in their massive orgy. Feeling her strength growing from the sexual energy resonating from them, she was curious why the cute blonde watching her was unaffected by her hypnotic power. "What's up, boss?" Vortex, her loyal hellhound, asked in concern. She hummed to herself for a moment before smirking confidently. "I believe we may have caught the suspicion of a young ninja Tex." He frowned at that. "You want me to ambush him?" "No," she shot down with a wave of her hand. "I'll do it. It's not every day that I see someone who can resist my abilities, let alone completely ignore them. I want to see him up close and personal." Vortex nodded before he went to inform the others what she was planning. Her smirk grew as excitement built up within her. Verosika, Mayday rarely had any sort of challenge, and she would meet that challenge and milk the rewards dry. She shivered in anticipation. Naruto crept up behind the concert venue's stage. His heightened hearing could still pick up the faint sounds of the orgy going on, and he wondered if any other beachgoers were aware of what was happening on their shores. Or any authorities for that matter, like town police. "I hope I know what I'm doing," he thought with slight worry as he leapt quietly onto one of the rafters holding stage lights, staying in the shadows like a ninja should. Even if Naruto was questioning his own sense of ability or worth lately, he would never doubt his skills in stealth and sabotage thanks to his early days of pranking the daylights out of the Hidden Leaf and its villagers. He even pranked the Hokage on occasion, And a darker part of his mentality believed he could have even killed the Hokage if he switched the prank from harmlessly fun to unexpectedly deadly. Yeah, that's the kind of thinking that I need right now, the Uzumaki mentally groused, shaking away those darker notions and focusing back on the now as he dropped from the rafters and behind some of the sound equipment. Keeping his senses sharp, he quietly moved backstage towards the room marked with a red heart that had devilish wings, a spaded tail, and horns. No doubt, that was the private room of the singer and leader of the group. The plan, half-cocked as it was, involved Naruto waiting for her in her room so that he could interrogate her, or possibly scare her off from ever returning. What his plan didn't account for was for someone trying to get the jump on him, or for him to instinctively stop the ambush and whip out some ninja wire before quickly incapacitating his assaulter. His plan also didn't consider that his target would be the one to try ambushing him. He tried to say, honestly at a loss for words as his face erupted in yet another blush. Here was his target, tied up at his feet by Hao own hand, while wearing what he could only describe as sexy underwear he had seen women wear in magazines when he was younger. She looked to him in surprise momentarily before giving him an intrigued smirk with gleaming eyes. Well, now, she practically purred out. I wasn't expecting this outcome. Fighting his blush, Naruto tried to look intimidating as he fired back. You jumped a ninja in the dark. What did you expect would happen? Well, normally at this point, your pants would be off, you'd be on my bed, and I'd be— His blush returned tenfold as he cut her off. Never mind. She nearly cackled at his embarrassment. By the seven hells, you're too easy, Whisker Boy. Despite the situation, Naruto's glare was more of an annoyed pout as he pulled out a kunai and cut her bindings. It was a stupidly rookie mistake, but she honestly reminded him of the more confident women from the red light district he lived nearby in the Hidden Leaf. He still found it rather sad how people who were shoved into the seedier parts of the village were more accepting and supportive of him than some of his fellow ninja. This woman reminded him of those supportive people, oddly enough. She stood up and rubbed where the wire dug slightly into her skin. A bit rough on me, weren't you? He rolled his eyes and stowed away his knife. Is everything you say an innuendo? He paused and then added, and did he really think he could sneak up on me? I'm a ninja, for crying out loud. Not always, she answered calmly before gesturing for him to follow her. Stand down, Texas. We're just going to talk. Naruto was about to follow her before he felt a warm breath exhaling harshly against the back of his head. Looking over his shoulder slightly, he spotted that wolf man from before standing behind him, looking down on him with a sharp eye. Mind your step, human, he growled out, prompting Naruto to raise a brow. You talk like you aren't one. Because we're not, the woman called to him as she stood by her door. Come on now. I promise I won't bite. Unless you want me to. Rolling his eyes and fighting yet another blush, Naruto walked over to her. They aren't human? Are they demons or something? When the duo entered her room, she offered him a seat on her couch while she sat at the chair in front of a mirror. Swiveling around to face him, she grinned at him and said, Don't mind Vortex. He comes off as a vicious hellhound, but he's not so bad, right? Wait, hellhound? He repeated. They're pretty low on the demonic food chain of hell like imps. Most are treated as little more than servants, but I couldn't do that to Texas. He's pulled me out of a few tight spots on his own. Hell? Wait, what are you? Demons? Pouting playfully, she teased. You mean you haven't figured it out? Not so good at espionage, are you, Ninja Boy? Even though he knew she wasn't serious about her comment, Naruto couldn't help the slight flinch. His doubts from earlier reared their ugly heads, much to his own chagrin. Verosika noticed this, and another interested gleam entered her eye. Oh, is Ninja Boy having some doubts? If she heard him try to say, noticing him avoiding her gaze. If you really are some type of demon, then you'd be some sort of a succubus, right? Ah, he blushing so adorable, she mentally cooed before answering verbally correct. I'm sure that explains the fuckfest happening out there to you now, yes? Having read that succubi were sexual-based demons, Naruto nodded. Yeah, no offense, but I thought demons stayed in hell. How are you all, Dash? Back up top? She finished, earning another nod from him. Certain demons earn special privileges when they reach particular levels of power or authority. Hell isn't just a place for the damned, Ninja Boy. Okay, Let's stop there for a sec. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. I'd rather be called by my name than that. She chuckled at that. Verosika Mayday, she introduced. To her surprise, Naruto offered his hand to her and replied, "Nice to meet you." Staring at his hand, she slowly reached out her own and shook it. "You're a pretty accepting human, aren't you? Most humans look down on us demons, or outright fear us. Well, let's just say I've been on the receiving end of disdain and fear plenty of times." "Oh, mind if I ask why?" "I'd rather not say right now. There's a story here," Verosika mused, her intrigue storing this information in the back of her mind. "Fair enough. Now, back to what I was saying. Hell is the home of many different demons, and we have our own hierarchy system complete with royalty. There are 7 rings in hell, with each ring being named after one of the deadliest sins. The lowest demons and those who are sent to hell upon death reside at the top, the pride ring, while Lucifer and his family live at the bottom. And the other 5 are filled with all sorts of different demons. I'm guessing? Yep. Why don't me all of this? I mean, it's interesting and all, but why? Isn't me knowing a risk to whatever it is you guys are doing? What we're doing is simply introducing lust and temptation to the masses. Don't worry so much." He aimed a dry look at her, which she found amusingly cute. "Plus, it's nice to simply talk with a human instead of send them into a sexual frenzy. You're one of the rare few that have completely ignored my power, and that's got me very interested." The look in her eyes made him feel like a small rodent in the face of a large cat. He swallowed thickly while his cheeks reddened as she got to her feet and sauntered over to him. Trying to back away, he only sunk deeper into the surprisingly plush couch before freezing when she straddled him on his lap. The redness in his cheeks grew brighter as she rested a palm against his cheek and rubbed his whiskers. "What interesting birthmarks," she mused with a smirk. "They're both roguish and cute." "Did you have to call them cute?" He couldn't help asking in annoyance, making her laugh. "You're more fun than I thought you'd be. How would you like to come with us?" That stopped him short. "With you?" "That's right. You look like you need to get away from everything for a while. And I'm not sure I want to let you go just yet," she answered, hooking a finger beneath his chin so that she could have him look her in the eyes. "It's been a while since I've had someone to play with." "Is that all I am?" he asked lowly, and she knew she was touching on a nerve. "Is that such a bad thing? Is playing with me so horrible?" She fired back. "Maybe, considering I've been played with most of my life." She dropped her smirk at that, looking into those deep cerulean eyes of his. They were gorgeous to her, displaying an almost glow that ironically nearly enraptured her. However, within those deep blues was a pain that tried to remain hidden, and a solemn acceptance for what may come. Backing off from him, she got up from his lap and moved to her hanging clothes to look for something to wear. "Think about my offer, Ninja Boy. We'll be here for a couple more days before leaving." Surprised that he was allowed to leave, Naruto got off the couch and headed for the door. When his hand grasped it, he paused for a moment before looking to her over his shoulder. "I'll think it over," he promised softly before departing. Verosika made no showing that she heard him, and she didn't react when Vortex came in not long after Naruto left. "You let him go?" he asked curiously. "I've never done that before," she confessed. "But there was something about him, something in his eyes that made me back off." "So, what now?" "I offered him the chance to come with us." A brow rose at that. "A human joining a bunch of sexual demons? Is that so far-fetched, Tex?" she questioned. "It is when you could have easily had them fall under your control. He can't fall under, though. Somehow, he's immune to my charm." That surprised the hellhound. "Immune? There's more to Ninja Boy than we think," Verosika stated as she turned to her most trusted member of her posse with a delighted smirk on her face. "And I want to see just how much more." Naruto sat awake in the middle of the night, ignoring the snores of Jiraiya in the bed next to him. His thoughts were on yesterday, the once more pointless day of training Jiraiya and him had, and the thoughts that had returned from the depths of his heart. He was going nowhere with Jiraiya and his perverted ways, and now he's offered a spot with a group that is more perverted than the Toad Sage. The answer should have been obvious, right? He should just ignore the offer and stay with his master, right? A sigh escaped him as he hugged his knees to his chest. "What do I do?" "You stop moping, for starters." He blinked once before thinking, "Why are you talking to me, QB? Gonna give me some advice?" "I just did, Welp." "Now, you've made yourself aware of just how weak you truly are without me. 4 times, you would have died without my aid. And that doesn't count the various other times you used my chakra for non-life-threatening moments like your fight against that Hugo Brad. 4. You know the fight against that ice-style user, of when you were plummeting to your death, and when you fought that bastard Uchiha you so stupidly called your friend. Yet, you've forgotten that time in the snow when you had that device strapped to you that locked away your chakra. That's right, the fight with Dodo in the land of snow. When he knocked me into the ocean. Exactly. Why remind me of another time that I owed my survival to you? I already know I owe you 3, now 4 times over. I remind you, because I have stake in what you decide to do with your life. Consider this, boy. You know that your time with that wart-riddled human is being squandered, and your time when you face the Akatsuki is coming closer and closer. Will you continue to foolishly waste time you need, or will you take a gamble on that temptress demon and her group? Wouldn't I be abandoning the village? Is loyalty to them worth more than you've already paid? That sounded oddly comforting, and it came from you. You aren't the first Uzumaki I've been placed into, boy. My previous host was someone very close to you, but her identity has been hidden from you by everyone you've ever trusted with your life. Your Hokage, your sensei, that slug summoner, and the humans sleeping beside you all knew her, but not one of them have trusted you with her identity. Who was she? You like to put some stock in keeping promises, boy, so promise me this. If I tell you her identity and just how close she is to you, you will leave with the temptress. Why? You know why. Indeed he did. As the QB said, Naruto was going nowhere with Jiraiya's methods. And the man was giving more and more obvious signs that he was going to have Naruto practice with the QB's chakra. And there was no way the Bijou would be okay with that. No, I wouldn't, the fox assured him. What could I learn while traveling around with demons? You'd be surprised what you could learn from them. Chakra isn't the only power in this world, boy. You need to keep your mind open to the possibilities out there. I go with them, and you tell me about the woman everyone else is keeping secret from me? Yes. Then, I promise. Good. Your mother was my previous host. Naruto's eyes widened in shock. She was another Uzumaki by the name of Kushina, whom I was given to by the maid of your first Hokage, Mito Uzumaki. You have carried a legacy since the night of your birth when I was ripped away from Kushina and her mate sealed me into you. Wait a minute, her mate sealed you? But didn't the dash? He froze realization, not wanting to believe what it implied. Don't look away from the truth like you've done countless times, boy. The QB snarled at him. You live a life of denial, and that makes you weak. And I will not have a weak host. You are the spawn of Kushina Uzumaki and your precious 4th Hokage. Naruto gagged at that, the shock of the reveal shaking him to his core. The 4th Hokage, the one who sealed away the QB, the man who damned him to the life of Jinchuriki. He was Naruto's father, and also your student, he growled out in realization, glaring at the sleeping form of the Toad Sage. You knew. You had to have known, you fucking bastard. Naruto had never been more tempted to kill someone than this moment. Even now, his hand twitched for his holster holding his kunai, but he clenched that hand closed and popped the knuckles in restrained fury. QB, is there a safe way to release you? Not to my knowledge, but perhaps there are some in hell who know a method. I'll take my chances then, he swore before he quietly gathered his belongings and stepped outside. Getting to the roof of the hotel they had been staying at, Naruto bit his thumb and performed the summoning jutsu, bringing out a large toad that was holding a scroll. Gamma, Naruto greeted politely, earning a curious look from the non-speaking toad. I need a huge favor from you, my last favor from the toad summons. Gamma looked concerned before motioning the Uzumaki to continue. Whoever's in charge of that scroll, Naruto pointed to the scroll in question. I want them to remove my name from the contract. Gamma croaked as if to ask why. Things aren't working out with Jiraiya, and I need to get away from him and the leaf for a while. Please have them remove my name. Gamma saw the desperate look in the teen's eyes and nodded sadly. Reaching forward, he placed a webbed hand on Naruto's shoulder and nodded in farewell before vanishing a burst of smoke. With nothing left to do, Naruto headed back for the beach. "I'll try to make you proud, Mom," he muttered to himself, hoping that his decision to leave would be something she would support. Gamma had returned to Mount Mayaboku after hearing Naruto's request. With a heavy heart, he made his way to the great sages of the Toad clan. Approaching some rather diminutive toads, Gamma bowed to them respectfully before setting down the contract scroll of the toads. Fukasaku and Shima, also known as Pa and Ma Toad, looked to Gamma curiously before watching him roll open the scroll, point to Naruto's name, and make a cutting motion with his forelimb. "Young Naruto wishes to remove himself from the contract?" Pa questioned in surprise. What would make him want to do such a thing? Ma asked, looking concerned at the notion. Pa grumbled to himself and thought for a moment before coming to a decision. "Gamma, take me to the boy. Let me speak to him personally, see what's happened that made him come to this decision." Gamma nodded as Pa jumped onto his back, and the duo vanished into smoke after Gamma pressed his hand on Naruto's name. Naruto had just approached the edge of the beach when a plume of smoke erupted right before him. He was curious at seeing Gamma returning with an elderly-looking toad sitting on his head. "Gamma?" he asked. "You must be young Naruto." Pa guessed with a smile. "My name is Fukasaku, but everyone just calls me Pa. You, my boy, look so much like your father." Naruto frowned at that. "Yeah, so glad to know that." Pa rose a brow at the bitterness in the Uzumaki's tone. "I've been told you wish to remove yourself from the contract with us. Tell me, before we do so, why are you requesting such a thing of us? You have my word as one of the great sages of the Toad clan that what you say will stay between us and my wife, the other great sage." Naruto's frown remained as he considered if he should even answer. After a few moments, he sighed as his shoulders sagged. It was Pa Toad's turn to frown, seeing how the blonde team before him seemed to have an invisible weight upon his shoulders. "It's a long story, Pa. I got time, my boy. Tell me what's happened." "I don't know where to start, though. My childhood memories? When I became a genin, when I met Jiraiya, this trip?" Pa jumped from Gamma's head to the ground before Naruto. Gesturing for the team to sit, he replied, "Tell me everything." And so, one of the great Toad sages was told the tale of Naruto from the star himself. Verosika sat on the edge of her stage, enjoying her Beelzebub as she looked at the starry sky, something that hell didn't have and something she was envious of. These humans don't realize what they have until they're sent to hell. "I almost pity them," she mused, taking another drink from her flask. To her pleasant surprise, a familiar voice spoke up from behind her. "I'm not too late, am I?" She turned around with a pleased smirk at the sight of Naruto without his headband and carrying a rucksack. "No, you're just in time, ninja boy." Her smirk fell for a confused look. What's with the geezer-looking toad?" Pa huffed at that from Naruto's head. "At least she didn't mistake me for a frog. This is Pa Toad. He's an elder of the Toad clan, and he promised to teach me something after he establishes a waypoint, Naruto-chan." Pa supplied. "Yeah, that. He needs a marker in hell, or else he can't summon me for training." Verosika made a thinking face at that. "How long will this training be?" "Naruto-chan needs more time to grow physically before I can start my more advanced training," Pa answered. "However, I can still teach him other things during his time traveling with you. You seem pretty relaxed being around a demon, geezer toad. And for hearing that I'm taking Ninja Boy with me to hell." Pa smirked. "Going to and from hell isn't the strangest thing I've seen in all my years, girlie. Besides, it's high time that this young man," he gently patted Naruto's head, "was trained properly for what may come." Verosika rose a brow at that, knowing there was a story involved. Shrugging, she replied, "Whatever. We'll be leaving soon. Ready when you are, V," Naruto said. "V, you call me Ninja Boy, so I figured I could give you a nickname too." She smirked. "Hang tight, and we'll be ready in a bit." As she left, Pa spoke up, "Once I set up the waypoint, I'll return to Mount Mayaboku and tell Ma what's happened. Don't worry about Jiraiya finding out where you are, my boy." "Thanks, Pa. However, we'll be having some words with him about his actions as of late. He was named your godfather by your parents, after all. We were looking forward to him introducing you to us, but he never did. He never did a lot of things." Naruto mumbled. "I know, my boy. You've admitted that this is a gamble you're taking. Let's hope that devilish luck of yours will pull through." "Yeah, I hope so too." The first thing Naruto noticed about his new surroundings was that the sky was a purplish red, and it had intermittent clouds lazily drifting along. It was interesting to Verosika how it was the sky that got his attention before the other demons who were staring at her and her posse. Quite the difference, huh? She asked rhetorically. Yeah, he answered absently, though he looked oddly tense. Him and the geezer Toad. Speaking of the Toad, he frowned for a moment before his eyes widened and he clapped his forelimbs together. Boyo, charge up your chakra. As much as you can, he ordered, sounding alarmed. Naruto complied without question, clapping his hands together and surging his chakra. The buildup of raw energy enshrouded Naruto, catching the attention of the nearby demons who were shocked at the sight of a human with that much power. Now unleash it as a pulse, boyo. With a grunt of effort, Naruto did just that and released the coiled-up chakra, sending it out like a massive shockwave that echoed for miles upon miles. The azure-colored energy seemed to be fighting a transparent source of power that was a deep black color, sending it away from both human and Toad. Unknown to Naruto, his chakra pulse was felt by all inhabitants of Hell that it swept past. At a corporate-looking building with large horns on the sides, the demons inside were sent reeling at the pulse of energy that swept by them. The three imps were knocked on their asses by the sheer force while the sole hellhound of the quartet gripped the armrests of the chair that she was on, with her claws tearing into the material. Her outfit featured a spiked black choker. The tattered gray, off-the-shoulder crop top she wore was held up at the neckline by a series of crisscross spaghetti straps that formed an inverted pentagram. For bottoms, she wore shorts that were tattered at the hems, with a crescent moon detail on the right side. The hellhound accessorized with fingerless gloves and black toeless stockings, with her black claws protruding due to her digitigrade stance. Her currently frazzled fur was white with gray encircling her face, gray patches on her shoulders, and long, voluminous silver hair that was swept to the side to reveal her dark gray ears, the right of which was pierced with two small hoop earrings, and the left of which was ragged. Completing her look was a large, dark gray bushy tail with white on the underside. Her hackled fur was a result of the shockwave saturating her with its potency. What the fuck was that? The leader of the imps, who was dressed in a somewhat nice coat, shouted in surprise. The other male imp, who was dressed professionally and wore a red bow tie, helped the sole female imp to her feet as he asked, "Are you all right?" She smiled gently at him and pecked his lips. "I'm fine, sweetie." She then noticed how the hellhound was still in shock and moved over to her. "Luna? Luna, can you hear me?" As if remembering how to breathe, Luna gasped for air and struggled to catch her breath as her fur slowly smoothed itself back. "What the fuck just happened?" She gasped out. "We don't know, Moxie," the bow-tie-wearing imp responded. "Maybe a demon issuing out a challenge to one of the demon lords?" "Well, does the fucker have to do that here?" Blitzo, the O, is silent. The imp in charge ranted furiously. "We were in the middle of a goddamn meeting." Millie, the female imp, tried to calm her boss down. "Relax, Blitzo. Nobody was hurt, just shaken up, right?" "Yeah, I'm fine," Moxie agreed before looking to Luna. "How about you?" She hesitated before replying, still a bit freaked, "But I'll be all right. I just want to know who the fuck decided to do a power flex in the middle of the Pride Ring." While Blitzo grumbled about what he would do to whoever caused the shockwave, the rest of the immediate murder professionals, IMP, retook their seats so that they could resume their company meeting. Further along the route of the chakra pulse, we come across a large burgundy-colored mansion in the Pride Ring that had a detailed glyph marking the balconies. Seated on the balcony was a tall demoness that looked to be an anthropomorphic owl. She had long, hair-like feathers that had gray tips and a large gray stripe on her head. Her face had a short pink beak and very long curved eyelashes with gray markings underneath her eyes, which themselves had red sclera with light pupils. For attire, the demoness wore a white dress with puff sleeves and feather trimmings, along with black accents. She was also seen wearing a crown, and she had painted nails underneath her black gloves. This demoness was Stella, the wife of Stolas, a prince of the goishas family of Hell. She was currently avoiding said husband, however, not wanting to see his, in her own words, pathetic, imp-sucking face this morning. Recently, Stolas had cheated on her with an imp of all things, and had done so on their bed, which she had personally destroyed with hellfire. She needed some space before her rightful fury got the best of her. She and Stolas had argued quite a lot lately, and it was obviously having an effect on their daughter, Octavia. Truthfully, Stella didn't like seeing how Octavia was behaving because of their arguments, acting distant and subdued. The worst thing she noticed was how used to the arguing Octavia had become. Stella didn't want to keep fighting, but there wasn't much left to say or do regarding Stolas. She was broken from her thoughts by a veritable wave of energy that swept through the mansion and kept moving without signs of slowing down. The potency of its overwhelming power had a strangely pleasant effect on her. Visibly trying to restrain herself, waves of ecstasy washed over her, and she had a small orgasmic release from the shockwave, leaving her flushed in her seat and breathing slightly heavier. What was that? She thought after calming down. It didn't feel like demonic power. It felt more like life energy. As she tried to figure out what could have caused the energy pulse, Stolas was busy steadying Octavia. He had been able to shrug off the shockwave, but Octavia was struggling to stay standing since she wasn't used to such things. Easy now, my owlet, he soothed, helping her to a seat at the table. Are you all right? What was that? Octavia asked in shock, her eyes still wide at the lingering feeling. It didn't feel like the power you or Mom let off. That's because it wasn't, Stolas informed her. What that energy was is more akin to life energy than demonic power or hell magic. But something like that could only have come from either an angel, a cherub, or a human trained in such energies. And the likelihood of any of those beings residing in hell is low, but not impossible, Stella was heard saying as she entered the kitchen. When she noticed Octavia's emotional state, she frowned in concern and moved to her side. Sweetheart, are you all right? Internally, Octavia was relieved to see her parents not arguing, though she wished the reasons for it weren't because she was affected by that odd pulse. I'll be all right, she assured her mother, giving the faintest of smiles to her. Stella smiled back and gently rested her hand on her daughter's cheek for a moment before standing up to regard her husband. Perhaps we should discuss the cause of that pulse in the foyer? Stolas, who was glad to hear her talking and not yelling, nodded in agreement. Turning to Octavia, he advised, try to catch your breath and eat something. We'll be back shortly. Nodding, Octavia replied, I'll be fine, Dad. He smiled at her before joining his wife in the foyer. Hopefully, they could simply discuss possible sources and not bring up further arguments. Very good, boyo, Pa complimented his future pupil. It seems as though the energies of hell were trying to cling to us and our chakra. Being a sage, I was able to detect its corrupted energies. Is that why I felt so on edge? He asked with a frown. Verosica rose a brow at that. You guys felt hell starting to affect you? As a sage, Pa began, I'm in tune with the energies of the world surrounding me, specifically the energy of nature itself. However, here in hell, that energy is corrupted in a way thanks to this being the home of demons and sinners. Life and death are part of nature, after all, and Ninja Boy was able to feel it because perhaps he has an instinctive awareness for energies trying to influence or change him, the elder sage suggested. No sense in telling her about the boy's burden. If he feels like informing her, that will be his choice. There's something Geezer Toad ain't sharing, Verosica thought with a frown before outwardly shrugging. Anyway, we better get off the street since Ninja Boy just announced his presence to practically the entire Pride Ring with that pulse of his. I'm impressed that you had so much juice stored up in you, though. The saucy grin she flashed him let him know she was speaking with an innuendo, and he tried to figure out what she was hinting at before he blushed in realization. His red face made her grin change to a smirk as she led everyone to where she lived in the Pride Ring. At a rather nice-looking apartment complex, she led Naruto and Pa to one of the uppermost floors and explained, I currently own all the rooms on this floor. My friends and I all live on this floor and have our own rooms, but there are still plenty of extra ones. Most of them just have some extra clothes, some booze, and other crap in them, but they're still livable. Go ahead and take your pick, Ninja Boy. Mine is marked by the same symbol as my changing room while we're on tour. So, it's marked by that red heart with succubus features, he mused before nodding in both understanding and thanks. He then started strolling down the hall in search of a room, leaving Verosika and Vortex standing together while the rest of her posse disbanded for the day. What do you think of him? The sex idol asked her most trusted companion and bodyguard. He's got power, that's for damn sure. Problem is that it feels untamed, almost wild. There's also something incredibly dark mixed with it, almost like the kids got wrath mixing in. Wrath? Verosika repeated with a frown. I don't think he's wrathful, though. I said his energy had it. Not him. It could be something about the source of his energy that gives off that feeling of wrath. Tex elaborated. She hummed at that, wondering about the enigma that the whiskered blonde was becoming. I'll see what I can figure out. Maybe have a chat with Ninja Boy after he chooses a room. Any ideas about what you'll do when word gets out that we brought a human to hell? You know that it's against the rules. Fuck the rules, Texas. There's something about him that keeps my intrigue hooked. And I'll get to the bottom of it. Just be ready for the backlash, boss, Vortex warned before heading for his room. Ironically, Naruto chose a room that was directly across from Verosika's. The inside had, like she said, some spare clothes in both boxes and hanging on rolling racks. It also had a fully built-in bar that was stocked with plenty of booze, a couch with a small coffee table, and a bedroom with a queen-size bed. Thankfully, the attached bathroom was stocked with basic essentials. Better than my apartment back home, he muttered as Fukasaku hopped off his shoulder and landed on the bar top. This should work, the elder sage mused as he went through a few hand seals and pressed his forearm on the bar. A sealing formula was imprinted on the wood of the bar top, the blackness of the formula blending well with the deep brown wood. There we go. That should allow you to summon either myself, Ma, or both of us to this location. Got it? Thanks again, Pa. Think nothing of it, boyo. We should have been introduced much earlier than this, and I'm sorry that it took you trying to end your contract with us to get you the help you deserved. He then sighed, looking ashamed about the situation. Your father would be, Pa. No offense to your past relationship, but the less I hear about him, the better. Naruto cut off with a frown. I'd rather not hear about Jiraiya's precious apprentice. Fukasaku looked further ashamed, but he nodded in understanding. Of course, Naruto. Now, I'd better get going and inform Ma about what's happened. Don't worry, we'll have a nice, long chat with Jiraiya about this. You don't need to do that. I'd rather he not know about any of this. What about Tsunade? Pa offered. Naruto hesitated for a moment, wondering if she should know about what was going on. She had to have known about his parents, especially after she accepted the position of Hokage. Still, she had been an incredible source of support and comfort for him before he left on this training trip. Making a decision, Naruto nodded in agreement. She deserves to know. Very well. If anything should happen, don't hesitate to summon us. We'll get you out of here in an instant. Thanks, Pa. Give my thanks to Ma too. Smiling, the elder sage nodded before he vanished in a plume of smoke. Sighing after Pa left his room, Naruto exited his new quarters and found a certain succubus leaning against the wall next to her door. She had that inquisitive look in her eyes again. So, you mind telling me what that was about? She asked curiously. It's nothing important. Just Pa setting up that waypoint of his. Naruto replied as he waved her question off before changing the subject. What are we going to do now? Tour of city? Visit your studio? Relax? Verosika flashed Naruto a disarming smile. Oh no, Whiskers. I think it's time we got to know each other, she thought before answering. We'll just relax for now. Let you get used to being here. After he nodded, she suggested, hey, let's play 20 questions. Get to know each other a bit, you know. Naruto thought about it before he agreed to her proposal. Inviting her in, the two took a seat on his couch. Verosika decided to start off simple and asked what his favorite color was. Orange, he answered easily. Yours? Hot pink. Naruto nodded with an amused look. Figured it was. He shared a brief laugh with her and then asked the second question. What's your favorite food? Mine's ramen. Specifically, the ramen from Ichiraku's. She thought about the question for a moment before asking, can I say my favorite drink instead? Naruto shrugged and nodded, to which Verosika pulled out a familiar bottle from her cleavage and took a deep swig. Removing the bottle from her lips, she sensually licked a stray drop before it could fall to the floor. The small blush on his face amused her. Beelzebub is unbeatable. Want some? She shook the bottle at Naruto in a similar manner to that girl from the beach. Unlike with the girl, however, Naruto shook his head at Verosika's offering. Thanks, but no. I don't like the burn of alcohol. You know. Shame. A ninja boy like you would be amazing at beer pong, Verosika suggested before taking a short swig. She licked another drop before she spotted the fully furnished liquor cabinet and bar that she always demanded in any room she stayed in. Flashing a mischievous smirk Naruto's way, the pop star got off the couch and then walked over to the bar. I rarely get to show off my bartending skills, so wait there a sec, she said with some eagerness in her voice. He lifted a brow at that eagerness before he saw her place 2 glasses, 2 limes, a bottle filled with alcohol, some sugar, and 2 tall silver cups on the island bar. Grabbing a knife, she chopped the ends off both limes, then cut most but not all of the skin off the sides, then cut them in half. Carefully removing the cores, Verosika quickly chopped the 4 halves into even slices before putting half of the newly made slices aside. Placing the first group of limes in one of the silver cups, she then used a measuring spoon to place what Naruto guessed was a tablespoon of sugar on top of the lime. She then grabbed a cylindrical wooden object with a rounded end and used it to muddle the contents of the cup. Filling the cup with ice from the freezer, she then opened the bottle of alcohol and slowly poured an amount in the cup. Verosika then took the other cup, placed it on top of the first, tapping it a few times to ensure the fit was tight. Grabbing the ends of both cups, she raised them near her head and smiled. Rather beautifully, he'd admit, as she shook the cups for 12 seconds, then put them back down and removed the top cup. Pouring out the contents into one of the empty glasses, Verosika repeated the processes to fill up the other glass. Taking a sip from both, she nodded approvingly before returning to the couch and offering one of the glasses to Naruto. Tada, Sisengo, take a sip, ninja boy. He eyed the glass warily, but then sighed since he was unwilling to refuse the fruit of her labor. Naruto brought the drink to his lips and took a small sip. To his enjoyment, instead of the noxious burn he expected, the pleasantly sweet taste of sugar and citrus dominated his mouth with merely a hint of alcoholic burn. What is this? Naruto exclaimed with a small grin, drinking a larger amount. Caipirinha, Verosika answered with a pleased smirk as she too drank from her glass. You said you didn't like the burn, so I figured I'd introduce you to mixed drinks and cocktails. Softening his grin to a smile, he raised his glass up for her to clink as he replied, well, thanks. I still don't get how Granny can drink so much sake, but if it tastes as good as this, I guess I can understand. She laughed at his comment as the two enjoyed some silence and savored their drinks. After they finished, they decided to resume their game of questions. The next 4 questions remained basic until the 7th, when Verosika asked who Naruto's first kiss was. Initially, she howled with laughter after hearing that it was Sasuke Uchiha, a boy whom Naruto hated. In a form of petty revenge, he asked if there was anything embarrassing that happened to her on stage, to which Verosika instantly admitted one of heels broke. The resulting wardrobe malfunction caused her to slip and fall mouth first onto a dildo decorating the stage. Wasn't expecting to deep throat anything that day, was her offhand comment to finish her story, and she smirked at Naruto's light blush. She laughed a bit at the memory as she threw an arm around him, causing his blush to increase at her proximity. Her undoubtedly expensive perfume filled his nostrils with a pleasant scent. Part of her was glad that he could relax around her. It meant that he was more likely to stay with her, and she wasn't planning on letting him leave anytime soon. All right, you were a prankster when you were a kid, right? Which was your best one? Asked the succubus with a mischievous grin as she stared down at him. Blush gone as he mirrored her grin, Naruto relayed what he considered his greatest prank, defacing the Hokage monument. The demoness howled with laughter at his escapade, prompting Naruto to share some of his other pranks, such as when he learned ventriloquism for the sole purpose of making people think inanimate objects were speaking to them. Holy shit, he actually threw it? Verosika questioned through giggles, leaning against the blonde Uzumaki. Yep, hit someone right on the head with that avocado too. Naruto answered with a chuckle. A few more seconds of laughing passed before Naruto asked, know how to play any instruments? A few actually, she answered, but I prefer singing over playing. For the 11th question, Verosika asked what his type was. His innocence showed when he asked if she meant his blood type. Her laughter told him that wasn't what she meant. Your type of women, ninja boy, she clarified before a playful smirk crossed her black lips and her eyes turned predatory. For example, are you into tits? She cupped her sizable chest while leaning forward to give him an eyeful of cleavage, and he blushed brightly before she turned and smacked her plump rear end. Or maybe you're an ass man, redder than a brick. Naruto could only sputter incoherently at her display, which prompted the succubus to advance her sexy assault. Assuming a pose that distinctly reminded Naruto of Hinata, index fingers pushed together and eyes off to the side, Verosika spoke with a meek, quiet tone. And maybe you like S-shy girls? S-senpai? Suggested the now demure-sounding woman. She even stuttered. Naruto was stunned at the sudden transformation as, once more, Verosika's entire persona seemed to shift. Changing from a Hinata-based one to one more like Sakura, she gave him a disgusted look while cracking her knuckles. Perhaps you like it when girls verbally tear you apart before stepping on you? Despite the blush that remained, Naruto's flat and unamused expression told her enough to dismiss that idea. However, the pop star had one more trick in her cleavage. Dropping her tough act, Verosika adopted a bewitching smile as her predatory gaze returned. Placing herself in his lap, her chest pressed up against his while her lips stopped a few millimeters away. Or maybe you want to be chaste, she whispered sensually. Her gloved hand went to her mouth, where she pulled it off with her teeth while never breaking eye contact as she traced circles on his whiskered cheek. Her voice became like honey as she continued her pursuit, trapping him in a spell. You want a girl who won't stop her pursuit until... Both their eyes widened, one pair in horror while surprise ruled the other. Smirking, Verosika got off him and returned to her seat next to the Uzumaki teen, picking up her glass and taking a long sip. Naruto couldn't even face her with how embarrassed he was. Noticing this, the succubus realized she may have pushed him a bit, just a tiny bit, too far. Welp, time to kill his boner and reset the mood, she mused, part of her upset that she couldn't take that erection of his for a spin. Swirling the contents of her glass before drinking, Verosika got a wicked idea before she spoke again. What if, when Sasuke kissed you, he puked in your mouth? The effect was as immediate as it was amusing. Naruto cringed in absolute disgust. Nose scrunched while he gagged and turned pale. A giggle caught his attention and ire as he leveled an annoyed glare at the succubus next to him. Why the fuck would you put that image in my mind? Got rid of your boner, didn't it? Verosika fired back with a smug grin. Looking down, Naruto realized he was quite the opposite of hard. Still glaring, Naruto decided to push the moment way down into his subconscious to lock away forever before choosing to resume their activity before something else happened. Can you fly, or are those wings for show? He asked, genuinely curious. Yeah, but not for too long, Verosika answered before adding. Flying is easier in my other form, but I don't use it all that much. Naruto filed that information away as Verosika asked him something relating to his occupation, receiving a rather boring answer, much to her minor disappointment. Never would she have guessed that ninjas had to do chores for lazy assholes, take written tests, and play a blood sport for the masses. Fucking lame. For question 14, Naruto wanted to know more about her other form. So, in your other form, do you become like a stereotypical, I will eat your soul kind of demon? Or is it different? It's nothing extreme like that, she explained. My horns grow, I get taller, my nails get longer and turn razor sharp, and my tail gets longer and whip-like. She wanted to take a drink, but stopped as she remembered something else. Oh, and my boobs, ass, and thighs grow in proportion with my height. Naruto blushed lightly at the mental image. That sounds uncomfortable. Not really, Verosika dismissed while looking mildly annoyed. I'm more pissed about how my clothes always get torn up in the process. His blush grew. Just because I can afford to buy replacements doesn't mean I want to, she griped. Nodding in agreement, Naruto picked up his glass before noticing he was starting to feel a bit different. There was a tingle in his lips, and he definitely felt more relaxed. He tried to figure out what was going on with his lips, moving them around in an attempt to get rid of the tingle, but to no avail. Verosika, seeing what was happening, laughed at his actions. Ah, it's your first buzz? cooed the pop star as she ruffled his hair. Internally, she was pleased to see the alcohol kick in, since this meant she could ask the question she really wanted to. Depending on his answer, she may cut this game short. Of course, she'd have to choose her words carefully, but she spent enough time formulating her question. Granted, people were more honest with alcohol in their system than out, but being tactful was never a bad idea. Time to find out what you and Geezer Toad were talking about, she thought in growing excitement before she verbally asked. So, out of everyone who's played with you, which one fucked you over the most, Ninja Boy? Naruto paused at first, asking, why do you want to know something like that? So, he wasn't quite tipsy enough to completely lower his guard. It was a good thing then that she thought ahead. Tell you what, Naruto, she began, slightly surprising him with the use of his name. You reveal a demon of yours, and I'll share one of mine. Deal? Naruto looked at his drink as he considered her offer. No one ever wanted to listen to his sorrows before. He mainly told Pa because he needed to vent, so he didn't exactly count. And while he wasn't quick to share them, he didn't want to let this chance to have someone actually listen slip by. Downing his half-full glass in one go, Naruto turned to the slightly surprised pop star. All right, but if I tell you this, then I want to know the story behind that tattoo of yours. Verosika stiffened at that, and her face contorted into a scowl before she too downed her glass, then pulled out her Beelzebub. You better have one shitty tale because I hate talking about that asshole. Naruto chuckled hollowly, the laugh alone assuring her it was far more than shitty. Drinking a bit from her bottle, Verosika gave him her attention as he started, as cliché as it sounds. My life has sucked from day one. He told her about the attack on Konoha that occurred on the night of his birth, which resulted in him having a nine-tailed mass of destruction sealed inside of him by none other than his own father. This one act would shape the opinions of damn near everyone around him. I was thrown out of the orphanage and put into a lonely apartment in the red light district when I was barely out of diapers. I had to learn to do everything myself since nobody wanted anything to do with me, and I'm fairly certain none of them would mind if I just dropped dead. The memories of their scornful words and heated glares swirled in Naruto's inebriated mind. Feelings long buried bubbled up, causing his grip on the glass to tighten as he continued. Even my time in the Shinobi Academy was affected by this. The teachers sabotaged me, labeling me dead last in nearly everything. Going further, Naruto told her of the shameless pervert who was supposed to be his teacher, but did everything but that. Stopping his rant to breathe, Naruto felt something cold tap his shoulder as Verosika offered him a swig of her liquor. His buzz-fueled anger left him uncaring about the burn, and the shinobi took a mouthful of the stuff, coughing slightly as he pulled it back. That same pervert was also my father's teacher, so there was no way he didn't know who I was, Naruto resumed as he handed her back the bottle. I still can't believe he never bothered to do anything to help me back then. I guess his care died with his precious apprentice. Naruto spat bitterly before turning to a stunned Verosika. Fuck, what thread have I pulled here? She thought, genuinely feeling guilty for getting him drunk enough to rant like this. Then again, my actual sensei barely taught me anything either, favoring Sasuke despite being my father's student. So, I shouldn't be surprised. What I hate the most, though, is how that bastard is hailed as a fucking hero while I'm demonized despite losing everything and barely having anyone on my side. I don't know the specifics of that night. He sealed the fox into me, but I know he's the reason my life was a shit show. He was silent for a moment, stewing in his anger before looking back to her. That shitty enough? Naruto asked, a bit more venomous than he intended. Verosika didn't seem too affected by his tone, but she hadn't expected that out of him. She remembered the solemn look his eyes had when they first spoke, and learning the reason behind it made her pause. Still, she was a bit surprised to learn they had something in common. Yeah, sounds like life, luck, and people felt like making you airtight, Verosika commented before taking a drink of her alcohol. Naruto wondered what she meant by airtight, but decided against asking, figuring it was some type of sexual slang. Spoiler alert, it was. All right, I guess it's my turn, the succubus said with a sigh, knowing damn well that her story was pathetic compared to his. Then again, heartbreak affected succubi much differently than others. Before I start, you should know something. When a succubus genuinely falls in love, The emotional connection is much more intense and deeper than the casual flings or sex we have. She started off, tinges of irritation in her voice. Keep that in mind. Naruto's nod told her to continue. She closed her eyes and breathed in to help prepare herself to pick at the wound again. To get the obvious shit out of the way, this tattoo has the name of my ex-boyfriend. Blitzo, Verosika started, before telling Naruto that the two had first met as Verosika's music career started to kick off, and she felt she needed a bodyguard after a few bastards tried to sneak backstage for a private meet and greet. Her disgusted tone was mirrored by Naruto's disgusted face. I hired him because he was cheap and seemed to know what he was doing, Verosika explained, remembering the rather professional attire and demeanor that Prick had during his interview. As time passed and they interacted, eventually they started dating, which quickly became rather serious. They had moved in together, and despite his many odd quirks, one of which Verosika labeled as a fetish for horses, making Naruto actually chuckle, she found Blitzo to almost be perfect. A total asshole and a bit of a slob, but nobody was totally perfect. I thought he was the one, and I was hoping that he felt the same as me, Verosika said with her head low, trying hard to keep emotion out of her voice. But she could not stop the memories playing through her head, nor the tears that pricked her eyes. The buzz Naruto felt quickly faded when he noticed this, and he saw the subtle tremble of her shoulders and heard the ever-so-slight crack in her voice. I asked him if he wanted to get married one night, taking a risk and hoping that he was on my wavelength. Her voice was practically dead as she finished. He was gone the next day with my car and all my credit cards. Naruto didn't know what to say, and he was unable to try and comfort her before her hands suddenly went to her face as her body shuddered. A small sob come from her. That sob nearly broke his heart. I know it's pathetic compared to your life, but I just don't understand. Why? Her slightly muffled voice continued before she moved her hands and turned to him with puffy eyes, her mascara starting to run. Naruto saw the hurt person she tried to hide behind her sassy attitude and carnal nature. A person hurting just as much as he was. How can something as beautiful, as filling as love hurt so much? She whispered. He frowned at the question, once again pulling on his reserves of sympathy as he decided to help her. It's not pathetic, Naruto stated, passing her a nearby napkin to wipe her eyes. She stared at him in slight surprise as he gently wiped away her tears. You gave someone your heart, and they stomped on it and left. I've never been in love, but to be betrayed like that by anyone? Naruto paused, thinking of the Ichiraku and how he would feel if they suddenly shunned him despite the years that he had known them. I'm sorry for making you relive that pain. I should have asked something else. Naruto apologized as he stood up and bowed his head with an ashamed voice. The pink-skinned demoness couldn't believe his actions. He was accommodating her just because of her emotional state, and his life was more fucked up than her little tragic love story. Verosika realized two things at that moment. Firstly, the kid, no, the man, before her was way too selfless for his own good. And secondly, she wanted his body under her own, her emotional state fueling that desire. Motivated by the second, she grabbed the still bowing blonde and laid him facing upwards on the couch as she straddled him and leaned her chest and lips on his, claiming her first kiss with the Uzumaki beneath her. The succubus moaned a little as her held the sides of his head, holding him still as her tongue licked at his teeth. Naruto was frozen in surprise for a few moments, but slowly he responded to her, opening his mouth to allow her access, something which Verosika greedily accepted. She felt his heart pick up the pace beneath her as one hand went around her flank to keep her stable, whereas the other gently held the back of her head. She felt secure in his grasp, enjoying the gentle hold, whereas others focused on her ass and hips or just flipped her on her back to try and take control. Grinding her body against his, Verosika found herself about to give in to the sensations. Fuck the consequences. Despite being inexperienced in kissing, Naruto pleased the succubus with his enthusiasm as they Frenched, following her lead and keeping pace. Sometimes she'd remove her lips, but keep their tongues close, staring into his mesmerized eyes and seeing a hint of something in their cerulean depths before descending back down. It was bliss. Eventually, Verosika pulled away, panting a bit, whereas Naruto looked as if he'd exhausted himself, which was impressive given his near-endless stamina. Wiping her mouth with the back of her gloved wrist, the succubus smiled at him and pecked his lips again before she got off Naruto. "I'll consider that my rent for the month," she stated softly, sounding happier. "You'll be trained as one of my bodyguards, which means that you and Vortex are partners now. See him when you can, okay?" Naruto only nodded as she walked towards the door, watching her hips sway hypnotically as she exited. He laid back down, hand on his jackhammering heart, unable to believe what just happened. Verosika, meanwhile, stood outside with a hand her lips, relishing in her actions. "Fuck, that was hot," she muttered to herself, dropping her hand from her lips to her chest. She still felt her heart racing, and she looked to the closed door over her shoulder with a smile. He had such a fucked up life, but he still tried to cheer me up. "What makes you so quick to overlook your problems, ninja boy? Why help me when you need it more than I do?" Those questions would eat at her mind for the rest of the night, and come morning, she would be no closer to an answer. A certain Toad Sage was on the verge of freaking out. He had woken up to find his charge missing and sent some shadow clones out to search for him. When they returned with nothing, he decided to use reverse summoning on him. It would shake the already strained relationship he had with his dead apprentice's son. But Jiraiya did not care, since he was more concerned about where the brat was. When he attempted the jutsu, it only produced smoke with nothing revealed. Officially freaking out, he was trying to think of an excuse to give Tsunade when two small plumes of smoke exploded before him. And when the smoke cleared, he was concerned to see Fukasaku and Shima appear before him, both elders giving the man stern expressions. "Jiraiya," Fukasaku began, "it's time for a talk. Can I talk to you later? I'm in the middle of a crisis here," the Toad Sage tried to say. "Clearly, seeing as you've no clue as to the whereabouts of your newest student," Shima spoke up, making the color drain from Jiraiya's face. "I can explain," he attempted, before the two elders silenced him with matching glares. "No, Jiraiya. It's time that we explained what's going to happen, and how you will have no part in it," Fukasaku stated firmly. "And before you get any ideas, Tsunade is already about to be informed as well. And while you will only receive a minimal explanation, she will be told everything." Swallowing thickly, the Sannin tried to laugh it off and asked, "Everything about what?" "About your failures as a master towards their apprentice," Shima started. "And about your failures as a godfather to Minato's tadpole," Fukasaku finished. It was at this moment Jiraiya knew he fucked up. Stella withheld a look of contempt at the reptilian imp before her. She knew this man only by reputation and hearsay, but whatever negative she heard could, reluctantly, be overlooked by the reviews she also heard about him. "So, what can I do for you, Goishia?" She heard him practically hiss out, particularly when stating her family name. "Information," she stated curtly. "I'm sure you felt that pulse of power a few nights ago. Yes? Hard not to. From what I heard, it reached nearly the entirety of the Pride Ring. Why? Interested in the source? You and every big wig in this ring." "Here," she smirked. "Perhaps, but I have more of an idea about who caused the pulse. I just need you to confirm it for me and give me anything you can find on them." "Yeah. And how much am I being offered for such a job?" Stella rolled her eyes at this. She had dealt with demons who were focused solely on the money they could extort for a job. They had certain tells or signs. But this demon, this striker, he pretended to be like that. Just as she was suppressing her disdain for him, he was doing the same thing. He lived up to the name of the uppermost ring, a demon who was ruled by his pride. He wanted to prove his so-called superiority over the more powerful or richer demons of hell. That didn't mean he wasn't going to not try extorting her for his services. So she silently called over the imp standing next to her, watching Stryker's reaction to the suitcase containing what she was willing to pay. "That is my offer. Take it or leave it," she firmly stated. The hastily hidden look of insult on his face almost made her smirk, but she was determined to ascertain the identity of whoever created that energy wave. So, she needed to remain calm. Scoffing, Stryker leaned back in his seat and readjusted the strand of wheat he had hanging out of his mouth. "What can you tell me about them? Whoever the individual is, they're either an angel hiding here in hell, or they're a human that is very far from home. That's more than anyone else who hired you can tell you." He fought a sneer at her comment. You snub on what you're paying me because you knew other people hired me. She allowed herself to smirk once more. That was part of it. The other? She gracefully stood up from her chair and turned around to leave. Information isn't free. I'll expect a report on your progress within the week. Stryker fought his desire to attack the smug bitch who confidently had her back to him. He wanted nothing more than to tear into her with his bare hands and bathe himself in her so-called noble blood. But he restrained himself and walked off. He had a job to do and multiple clients wanting him to see it done. There could be another opportunity to kill the woman. Dressed in only her underwear and a bra in her room, Octavia huffed in annoyance as she plucked another feather from her thigh. She gave it a narrowed look before tossing it on top of a small pile on the floor. Stupid stress molting, she grumbled, remembering her father telling her about it when she was younger. Avian demons, and birds in general, will find their feathers molting if they're overly stressed. And given that her parents' fighting had escalated and that odd pulse of crazy energy washing over her, it was only a matter of time before she molted from the stress. It's rather aggravating, isn't it? She heard her mother ask from the door, and Octavia turned to see her giving a faint smile. Molting outside of your natural time? She emphasized her query by shaking her head, throwing off some of her own loosened feathers from stress. Octavia was slightly surprised, not realizing how stressed her mother was. Yeah, definitely not a fan, the younger goishas said, stressing the word as she pulled out another feather before putting her clothes back on. You were gone for a bit. Business? In a way. It was a personal matter that I attended to by hiring someone, Stella answered, walking off to her room while Octavia followed. I wanted to look into the energy wave from before and hired someone to investigate the source. You know who it is? Nothing concrete as of yet, but I have some ideas. Hence the investigation. Octavia hummed thoughtfully at that, pulling out her phone. Maybe someone posted something on social media about it? Possibly, Stella acknowledged, not too familiar with social media, but knowing Octavia had made a good suggestion. They entered Stella's room, with her having moved out of the main bedroom after Stola's affair on their bed. However, her room had some packed bags and suitcases while another, which was partially filled, rested on her bed. Something Octavia noticed with a sad frown. Mom? She began in a low voice. While folding a coat and placing it in the bag, Stella replied, Yes, dear. You and Dad aren't staying together, are you? Pausing in her packing, Stella turned to her daughter and saw her averted gaze while awkwardly rubbing her arm. The woman sighed softly and pushed aside the bag so that she could sit on her bed and offer Octavia a spot next to her. When Octavia took the offered seat, Stella answered, No, we're not. Your father and I are getting a divorce. But why? Is it because he cheated? Octavia asked, needing to understand her mother's decision. That was the final straw, to be clear, but it was not the main reason, she confessed. The truth, Octavia, is that your father and I never wished to be married in the first place. What? The younger goishia asked in surprise. But then, why are you? It was an arranged union with the hope of producing an heir to the goishia, Stella informed her daughter. A political marriage that had been decided by our parents. Realization hit Octavia like a ton of bricks. Me? Nodding, Stella clarified, as our daughter. You are a potential heir to the goishia. That's all our marriage was, a duty to be fulfilled and assigned to us by elder goishia hoping to gain more power. A horrible feeling started to build inside her, and she shakily asked, So then, am I? She never got to finish, though, for Stella had cupped her cheek and gently made Octavia face her. Octavia, don't you dare finish that thought. You may have been born out of duty, but that does not mean that we don't love you. She smiled and caressed her daughter's cheek in hopes of comforting her. You are our child, our daughter, our beautiful little starlight. Never doubt that for a moment, sweetheart. Her eyes grew misty as she finished, understand? With tears rolling down, Octavia flung herself in her mother's arms and sobbed into her chest as Stella comforted her child with a loving embrace as her own tear fell. She felt Octavia nodding her head and smiled as she let her vent. Afterwards, she would help Octavia preen the rest of her feathers. Back up top, Tsunade was currently looking over reports of a C-rank mission that had been completed by Team 8. It was a scouting mission along the borders between the land of fire and the land of rice, considering how the hidden sound had secretly been made within that country before the Chunin exams over a year ago. Nothing unusual? HM? The Hokage asked after skimming the report, planning to look at it thoroughly after hearing from her subordinates. Nothing out of the ordinary, Lady Hokage, Kurenai answered. We couldn't get anything further without crossing the border, but we saw nothing noteworthy from our vantage points along the border. Well, no news could be good news. Good work regardless. Your pay will be placed in your accounts in the next couple of days. Dismissed. Team 8 bowed to the woman, yet all but a certain young woman departed. Lady Hokage? Looking up from the report, Tsunade replied. Something on your mind, Hinata? I was hoping to hear if you had any news on Naruto-kun. Jiraiya hasn't reported recently. With him and Naruto needing to be on the move so much, it doesn't leave much time to send messages. I see. A sudden poof of smoke interrupted them from speaking further, and it was revealed to be 3 new occupants in Tsunade's office. Lady Shima, Lord Fukusaku, the last Senju greeted respectfully, earning greeting nods from the Toad elders. It's been quite some time since I last saw you both. I hope you're well. Well enough. Given our age, Tsunade-chan, Shima replied with some amusement. You still look so lovely. Thank you. May I ask why you're both here with Jiraiya? Where's Naruto? She then remembered the other occupant and quickly ordered, Hinata, you're dismissed. This conversation doesn't concern you. But Lady Hokage. Hinata tried to argue, but a firm look from the woman silenced her. With a reluctant nod, she bowed and departed. Please send in Shizen before you leave, Tsunade added, waiting for her assistant and first apprentice to enter the office before calling out, A&B, you leave us. For blurs shot from different hiding places, gave their leader a bow in respect, and vanished. This allowed Tsunade to seal up the office from prying eyes and ears. Now Jiraiya, where's Naruto? Looking incredibly uncomfortable, the Toad Sannin muttered, I don't know. You don't know? Repeated the slug Sannin with narrowed eyes, while Shizen looked concerned for the missing Uzumaki. How could you not know? Weren't you supposed to be looking after him? How could you lose him? She was getting more worried with each inquiry about the young man who had helped her move past her emotional pain and inspired her to return to the Hidden Leaf. Her younger, distant cousin had quickly become someone she was both fond of and fiercely protective of. It didn't take long for Naruto to cement himself into her heart as someone important to her. Fukusaku waved her down to placate her worries. Easy, Tsunade-chan. Naruto boy is fine. The reason I had Jiraiya boy bring myself and Ma here was to tell you what has happened recently involving Naruto boy. Tsunade gave her old teammate a dangerous look before leaning back in her seat and motioning everyone else to sit. She had a feeling this talk would take some time. Go on and, to be blunt, Fukusaku began, Naruto boy is in hell. What? 3 different voices cried out, the suspects being Tsunade, Shizen, and Jiraiya, who had not been told what happened and was ordered to bring Ma and Pa Toad to the Hokage. Hearing that his apprentice was in hell of all places was both shocking and unbelievable. Not to mention, it should be impossible. Lord Fukusaku, please explain. Why is Naruto in hell? Shizen asked anxiously, fear for Naruto's safety overwhelming her. Like Tsunade, Shizen came to see Naruto as someone she had bonded deeply with. If someone asked her to define what she felt for the young man, she would proudly say that Naruto was like the little brother she never had, but always wanted. He was a person with incredible warmth and compassion for others that she wholeheartedly believed would become worthwhile. Pa sighed and explained, Naruto boy left for hell willingly, tagging along with some inhabitants that he had met one evening at a port town he and Jiraiya boy were staying at. And you let him leave? Jiraiya asked in shock. What in the name of the sage made you do that? Don't raise your voice at us, boy. Mascolded firmly. You don't understand what Naruto-chan was feeling before Pa spoke with him. The boy was about to cancel the contract he made with the Toads. You what? The man gasped out, flabbergasted at the news. Why would he? Pa answered. He's had enough, Jiraiya. Enough of the secrets, of the mistreatment, of the unrealistic expectations. Do you have any idea what he's been through, living as a Jinchuriki in this village? I know it was hard, But Minato dash. That boy's faith in the village does not excuse what they did to his son. And you know it. Ma cut off. Honestly, sometimes I wonder what was going on in his head to make his son the newest Jinchuriki after the mayhem the Kyuubi caused. Lord Minato was Naruto's father? Shizen asked in shock. The boy's parents are Minato and Kushina, Pa explained. Kushina was the previous Jinchuriki, but somehow the fox escaped her seal. Considering how she and Minato were both masters of Fuinjutsu, it stands to reason that someone interfered with the seal during Naruto boy's birth. I've looked into how pregnancy affects a female Jinchuriki. Tsunade began, though there are very few cases on the subject in the history of Jinchuriki. Apparently, the body's need to develop the child takes away from maintaining the seal used to restrain the bijou. Kunoichi, who are pregnant, suffer bouts of chakra drain and loss of control since their chakra is also part of the development of the fetus. If that's true, Lady Tsunade, then that supports the notion of outside interference in stabilizing the seal, Shizen commented with a frown. But who could have known about the pregnancy and interfered? Something for us to look into. Tsunade planned before getting back on track. Naruto must have found out about his parents then. Am I right? Nodding, Pa replied, Naruto and I spoke at length after I found out he planned to cancel his contract with the Toads. On his last night here before going to hell, Naruto boy spoke with the demons that were performing a concert of sorts on the beach. The leader of the group offered him a job and asked him to think about it after they spoke about more personal topics that I won't divulge. What sort of demon, Pa? Jiraiya asked suspiciously. A succubus demon. And before you say anything, he cut off before anyone could speak up. The boy was of sound mind and under no influence whatsoever when he left. She did not charm him or cast some sort of spell on him, so relax. Tsunade and Shizen looked relieved while Jiraiya asked, what was the job, and how long is he going to be employed by the demon? Security, bodyguarding, and being an assistant were the jobs he agreed to. As for how long, I cannot say, but Ma and I have promised to continue his training. Training that you, Jiraiya-chan, have wasted, Ma accused. Honestly, you wasted an entire year on the basics? Either you were spending more time on your damnable peeping, or Naruto-chan was incredibly underdeveloped as a ninja. Jiraiya, Tsunade ground out. Why did you waste so much time for a whole year? And don't you dare say that the whole year was needed. The truth. Now, well, you see, Kakashi didn't dash. The man tried to shift blame, but was silenced when Tsunade slammed her fist on her desk, cracking the furniture in two with a perfect split down the middle. I focused more on my research, he reluctantly admitted, but it wasn't all the time. I also spoke with members of my spy network and looked into leads on either Orochimaru or the Akatsuki. Honest, I don't give a damn about that. What I do give a damn about is you squandering time with Naruto, your godson, and the son of your revered apprentice. You had the perfect opportunity to establish a real bond with him. You damned idiot. And what do? The same old habits of throwing concepts at him and ditching him. I know you, Jiraiya. I know that's how you train Minato, and you were banking on a repeat success with Naruto. That's not true. Oh? Tell me then exactly how you taught Naruto the Rasengan, or how to summon the Toads. Go on. I'm listening, Tsunade challenged with a fierce glare. He attempted to explain before stopping, forcing himself to look back on how he had taught his godson how to perform two of the three jutsu that linked the young man to his deceased father. He recalled having Naruto sign the scroll and going over the basics of the summoning jutsu, only for Naruto to struggle. He recalled never once giving Naruto advice, save for exhausting all of his chakra for the sole purpose of calling upon the chakra of the Kyuubi, and then casually shoving Naruto into a chasm he could have died in if he hadn't gotten lucky with the fox in question. He then recalled how he taught Naruto the Rasengan, which was being generous, even in his recollecting eye. All he showed was a single demonstration of each step, as well as the differences between a two-step and three-step Rasengan. Naruto was forced to develop a workaround because of his negligent teaching style. I saw him as another Minato. He finally confessed, his voice low with self-shame, ignoring the fact that they grew up differently. Minato had quality training with higher standards and had an intellect and instinct that few could match. He needed minimal guidance, only requiring basic knowledge that he deciphered on his own. Tsunade, while still upset for Naruto's sake, couldn't help softening her glare at seeing her old friend looking so broken. Whereas Naruto grew up in a hostile environment and struggled just to understand basics because nobody bothered to teach him even that. I understand why you needed time to teach him those basics, Jiraiya, but you have to realize what your negligence as his master cost. He must have felt like you wrote him off, viewing him as lesser than the vices you preach about resisting but always fall prey to. I know, Tsunade, I know. She decided to let him reflect and turn back to the Toad Elders. What exactly do you plan on training Naruto in? I intend to introduce him to other Toads who can sync with him for different forms of combat, but Gamakichi will be his main partner as he'll grow alongside Naruto Boy, Pa explained. I'll need a piece of that chakra paper you use to determine affinities, so that I may find Toads that match or complement his affinity. Shizen, start a list. We'll need to add a few things for Lord Fukasaku and Lady Shima to take while instructing Naruto. Yes, ma'am, Shizen replied, fetching a paper and pen before taking notes. Perhaps a weapon for the boy, as well, Shima suggested to her husband, who hummed at the idea. We'd request practice weapons for a sword, a polearm, and a more blunted weapon. Maybe even a shield like Gamaken uses. Also, if you could give us a detailed copy of the Shadow Clone Scroll, Fukasaku added. From what I can tell, there may be some more potential with that jutsu that Naruto Boy hasn't discovered yet. Tsunade watched Shizen note everything down. Anything else? Give him this. Jiraiya suddenly spoke up, pulling out a notebook stuffed with extra pages and notes. He's an Uzumaki, and the son of two legendary experts of Fuin Jutsu. He deserves to know their best skill. Fukasaku took the notebook, giving his old student a nod showing the man he was doing a good thing. He was angry with how Jiraiya had handled Naruto's growth as a ninja and as a person, but he didn't hate the man. He just wanted him to acknowledge his shortcomings and be better. Shima felt the same, and she gave Jiraiya a faint smile at the man's contribution to Naruto's future training. She knew that the relationship between the two men would never return to what it was, but she hoped that they would eventually at least be professional with one another. An idea struck her, and she added, if possible, Tsunade-chan, could you give us a few things about Naruto-chan's mother? I'm sure he'd appreciate learning about her. Tsunade smiled at the idea. I'll see what I can find. In the meantime, I'll have Shizen gather the requested items, along with a few jutsu of my suggestion that Naruto should find use for. Very good. We'll return in a couple days to collect whatever you can offer, Fukasaku bid before he and his wife left in plumes of smoke. Jiraiya sighed at their departure. I really screwed up this time, didn't I? Tsunade sent Shizen off with a small nod of thanks before pulling out some sake and pouring out 2 servings. Handing one to Jiraiya, she replied, I won't lie and say you didn't. I trusted you with Naruto's well-being, and he trusted you with his development. You fucked up. Pure and simple. I know that. At least now I do. Taking a drink, he morbidly joked, Minato and Kushina will probably kill me twice over when I finally kick the bucket, and I will sit back and watch it happen. So, what happens now? Keep tabs on the Akatsuki and Orochimaru, like you were claiming to be doing before. However, I want you to be more focused about it. I know you won't quit cold turkey about your habits, but I expect you to take this more seriously. I want updates bi-weekly, if not monthly. Understand? Nodding. The Toad Sage handed her the empty dish and stood up, readjusting the scroll strapped behind him. I'll head out immediately, head to Rice Country, and get what I can on Orochimaru first. Jiraiya. Tsunade spoke up just as the man prepared to depart via the window. If an opportunity arises where you can take him out with minimal risk, I want you to consider taking it. He was silent for a moment before responding. That kind of chance isn't something you should bet on, but I'll keep an eye out. As he left, she whispered to herself, I promise to stake my life on Naruto, Jiraiya. So, I'll bet on any gamble that takes out people after him. Charlie Morningstar, Princess of Hell, and proprietor of the Happy Hotel located in the Pride Ring, sighed somberly as she sat on her room's balcony. Many thoughts plagued her mind at the moment. with 3 of them taking prominence. The least prominent was the fact that a party for her was approaching soon. It was a celebration of her 2nd century of life, her 200th birthday. She didn't want to have a big celebration, but her parents insisted otherwise. At least she could have Vaggie accompany her as her date for the occasion. The second thing on her mind was the odd pulse of energy that echoed across the Pride ring a few evenings prior. She had never felt such an abundance of life energy like that, and to have it echo across an entire ring was astounding. Part of her wanted to look into it, but she was distracted by the biggest issue on her mind. The hotel. Once a mansion owned by her parents for extended stays in the Pride Ring, Charlie had taken ownership of the building in hopes of retrofitting it into a rehabilitation clinic for demons in hell. Her goal? To promote redemption so that sinners could be welcomed into heaven. The reason? Because she felt that people deserve the chance to atone for what they did in life. But that wasn't the main reason. In hell, there is a yearly event that is simply called the extermination. During this time, exorcists from heaven, armed with angelic weapons, are sent down to hell to assist in taking care of its overpopulation by eliminating any demon that is in plain sight. This was something Charlie found both saddening and loathsome. She felt sympathy and pity for the demons killed off, and she despised that it was a necessary thing to deal with the overpopulation issue. Thus, the Happy Hotel, where Charlie hoped to change things so that the extermination was no longer a threat to her home and her people. As princess, she felt she had an obligation to her home's denizens. Sure, her efforts were ridiculed and seen as a fantasy, but she truly believed it would be a success. She was also immensely grateful to her girlfriend, Vaggie, kept her grounded. Charlie would admit to having flights of fancy and being overly optimistic at times, but Vaggie made sure she stayed realistic when she would start veering off. She loved her for that. She's probably talking with Mom right now. She mused to herself as she left her balcony and headed for where her mother, Lilith, was staying. They're probably talking about my party and the hotel. Approaching the room, she heard muffled voices through the door and politely knocked. When she heard her mother grand entry, she opened the door to the woman and her girlfriend sitting at a table with some papers between them. "Hello, dear," Lilith greeted warmly. "I was speaking with Vagatha about the upcoming bash. We were just going over the guest list, right? Do we really need to have such a big event, though?" Charlie asked with a slightly uncomfortable expression. "Han," Vaggie spoke up with a smile, "think of it this way. All of those nobles and big wigs attending the party are potential people who may invest into the hotel. Silver linings, yeah?" Honestly, Charlie hadn't considered that. With all of the ridicule she had received about the hotel, she never thought of speaking personally with other nobles about the venture. With luck, she may be able to change their minds about her idea and get them to offer their support. Excited about the prospect, Charlie rushed over and hugged her girlfriend while kissing her cheek. "Vaggie, you are a genius. Did I ever tell you that? You could stand to mention it more." She fired back in amusement as the couple enjoyed the embrace shared. "My, how adorable you two look," Lilith commented, getting a blush from her daughter while the girlfriend rolled her eyes and smiled back. "I take it you're no longer bothered about the party, dear?" Charlie composed herself and replied, "I'd still rather not make a big deal about it, but I won't turn down an opportunity to help the hotel succeed." "Wonderful. We'll see you at the mansion. Feel free to look over the guest list," Lilith bid before using her own personal magic to return home. Charlie took the seat her mother previously occupied and took the guest list in her hand to review it. Skimming through the names of demon nobles and their family members, she noted that a few other guests invited were not nobles. Some were demons who had become successful in their own right and were able to score an invitation. And one of the names on that list was a certain pop star. Verosica watched with interest as her bodyguard and ninja boy readied themselves for a sparring match. It wasn't the first time they had done so, and each one was fun to witness for her. Vortex was a hellhound with a calm ferocity, keeping calm until striking with the fury of a wolf. Whereas Naruto was a tempestuous wind, going wild at the start and striking at all angles with the aid of those copies he creates almost endlessly. Of course, her mind immediately thought of other uses for his shadow clones, uses that got her a bit moist down there. Unaware of the thoughts of his current employer, Naruto cracked his knuckles and rolled his shoulders as he stepped into the makeshift sparring ring. You sure you want to do this, Tex? Why not? I haven't had a good brawl in weeks, Tex said while finishing off a beer, before casually crushing the can between his palms and tossing it into the trash behind him. You're an ass, you know that? Naruto replied with a chuckle at Tex's joke before sliding into a ready stance. Guess I gotta remind you about the fights we had before. Fight! Cried out Milky, one of Arasaka's posse members. She was what people labeled as a short stack, a woman on the shorter side that had an impressive bust size, sometimes out of proportion with her height. She was also a big fan of Earth's Mortal Kombat series, and she couldn't help yelling out the start of the spar, much to the amusement of her friends. As the spar commenced, Kiki noticed something different about her boss. Hey, boss? Yes, Kiki. Did you get a new conditioner for your hair? It looks amazing. Verosika smirked at the question. No, it was actually thanks to Ninja Boy that my hair looks like this. What they were talking about was how Verosika's hair looked fuller and more vibrant, as if it had been injected with life. It added a level of beauty to her natural look that made it hard to decide if she was sexy or gorgeous, both being different measures of beauty. Coco ran some fingers through Verosika's hair, looking amazed at how soft it felt. Fuck, what did he do? And can it be repeated? Ace asked as he sat in Josh's lap. The two incubi were rather close, just as Coco and Apple were also close. It takes effort to make my hair this good. Is that what you call it? Apple teased as she laid her head on Coco's shoulder, giggling when Ace simply flipped her off. Verosika watched as Naruto slid beneath a lunge Tex tried, using his hands to spring himself up and kick the Hellhound in the chest. The blow knocked him upward, where a clone was waiting with a heel drop that Tex managed to block by turning his body so he could absorb the impact with his forearm. As the spar went on, she answered, "It has something to do with Ninja Boy's chakra. He was using it to clear out any knots in my hair as he brushed it with his fingers. He didn't use anything else but his fingers and his chakra. Nothing else? Not even a comb?" Kat asked curiously. Normally, he wouldn't care too much about hair maintenance, considering he had a messy hairstyle that looked like bedhead. But he was intrigued by the human his boss invited into their group. It was amazing how well Naruto got along with the group. He had a certain charm to him that let him make friends with nearly anyone he met, and he was incredibly open-minded about things. When he saw that the posse had 2 homosexual couples within it, he didn't bat an eye and expressed a hope to meet someone he could care for in the future. That earnest desire for companionship made the posse chuckle, each of them already seeing their boss's interest in him. Ever since his first night staying with them, they noticed how comfortable Verosika was with the young man, and how she looked lighter than before, as if his presence took away the things weighing down on her. Just his fingers. Although, when his chakra sank into my skin, Verosika moaned for a moment and shuddered. Fuck, almost came by how it felt. Safe to say, Ninja Boy's gonna make a girl very happy if his chakra can do that to them. A smirk formed on her face as she added, "He's not a bad kisser, either, even if he's inexperienced." Kiki smirked back and nudged her boss. "Staking your claim already? Maybe. Who knows?" Verosika answered lightly, though the posse saw her gaze stay with Naruto as he caught a punch with his hand only to have his own caught by Tex. The two kept a deadlock, grinning at each other as they tried to push the other back. In sync, they reared their heads back and slammed foreheads without a second thought, ignoring the pain they felt from the matching headbutts. They pushed against each other, blue eyes defiantly staring at white within crimson ones. "You're stupidly strong, kid," the Hellhound ground out, not gaining nor giving ground to the human before him. "So, are you, Tex?" Naruto replied, though his grin grew more devious as his gaze flicked over Tex's shoulder for an instant. "But I won." Vortex was about to respond, but he felt arms encircle him from beneath his pits, forcing him into a full Nelson hold. He growled and snarled as he tried to break the hold, but the damn kid held strong and managed to kick the back of one of his knees, forcing him into a tight spot. While his clone held down the Hellhound, Naruto regained his breath and prepared to end the spar, but he couldn't help sweat dropping when he heard Milky call out, "Finish him." Vortex, despite his unfavorable position, gained a tick mark as he barked out, "Damn it, woman. This isn't a video game." Verosika and her posse busted out laughing at his response while Naruto held back his own laugh and dispelled his clone, freeing Vortex as he helped the Hellhound to his feet. "Good fight, dude," Naruto bid with a small grin. "If I didn't use my clones, you would have had me easily." "True, but don't handicap yourself, kid. It's a stupid notion that based around honor or some other bullshit. In a real fight, honor means shit. It's all about either surviving or taking your opponent out. Get it? Got it? Good. Next time, I won't go down so easy," Tex challenged with a fanged grin. Smirking back, the Uzumaki replied, "Anytime, Wolfman." The two shared a knuckle bump before Naruto was surprised by Verosika draping herself over his shoulders from behind, her head beside his. "Not bad, ninja boy," she complimented. "You've improved from your first match with Tex here." Naruto cringed at the reminder. It wasn't a spar, but a one-sided embarrassment. His movements were so predictable that he practically ran into Vortex's waiting fists. It really drove home how bad his so-called fighting style was and how reliant he was on mobbing people with his clones. "Thanks," he replied, turning so that he looked her in the eye. "Anything on your schedule today?" "Actually, yes." She grinned with a gleam in her eye as she held up a fancy-looking envelope. "Turns out yours truly has been invited to a party celebrating the 200th birthday of Hell's Princess. You mentioned royalty before. There's also a king?" "Yep. Noble families have their own territories, but they all answer to the big man himself, Lucifer Morningstar. He was the original devil of this place, and he was once a servant of the biblical god before betraying him and falling to hell. His wife, Lilith, could be called the first succubus." "Huh. That's interesting," he mused. "What about their daughter?" "Not much I can say about her, honestly. Her name's Charlie, and she was on the news recently about some hotel she's opening here in the Pride Ring. All I know is that she was ridiculed for it, but I didn't pay attention since we left during the broadcast. It was for that concert we met at." "Ah. Well, maybe you can meet her at the party, seeing as you were invited and all." "Oh. And what makes you think I'm going alone? I can't go anywhere without my amazing bodyguard and my ninja boy." "Wait, we're tagging along?" the blonde Uzumaki asked in shock while Vortex gave Verosika a knowing smirk that she winked at. "Clever boss. Invite him along under the guise of protecting you, but in reality, taking him as your escort," mused the Hellhound. "You've really become interested in him, haven't you? So, because you and Tex will be coming with me, we all need new threads for the Big Bash. Which means we have some work to do." Naruto went pale with dread at what she was implying. "Oh, fuck me?" Without missing a beat, the succubus woman replied, "Maybe later, if you behave." Naruto could only sputter as his pale face turned neon red at the insinuation. "Anyway, it's time for some shopping. Let's go, sluts. We got a lot of work to do, and little time to do it." Knowing what she was referring to, Naruto cried out, "Oi, my clothes are not that bad. Keep telling yourself that, kid." Tex fired back in amusement. "Trust me, ninja boy," Verosika added with an alluring smirk. "By the time we're done fixing your wardrobe disaster," she teased, earning a pout from him that she found adorable, "you'll have bitches hanging off you in seconds." The thought of that had Naruto swallowing a lump in his throat. He wasn't sure how to feel about the notion of being what Kiba had referred to as a babe magnet. He wasn't one for unneeded attention. But seeing the way Verosika looked so excited about the venture, he couldn't fight the faint smile on his face. Ever since the first night, when the two opened up to one another, he felt himself growing closer to the woman with each passing day. Not to mention what she was doing to help his own self-confidence. He still couldn't believe she allowed him to see her in nothing but a bathrobe this morning. He found himself awkwardly sitting on her couch after being called to her room. She was finishing up her morning shower, and he couldn't help blushing as his traitorous mind conjured up possible images of how she'd look in there. "How are you finding hell, ninja boy?" she called from the bathroom. "Oh, it's definitely not what I was expecting. I thought it'd be all fire and brimstone, you know? That's the common misconception," she replied with a laugh. "Each ring has its own society and standards. You'll see for yourself eventually, right? So, is there any particular reason I'm in your room while you shower? I could always come back later and miss seeing you squirm." "Not a chance, ninja boy." Figures, he sighed out, earning another laugh from her that he smiled at. He liked how it sounded in his ears, and it was better than how it felt hearing and seeing her cry. He felt his heart twist at the memory. He broke from his thoughts when he saw her bathroom door open, producing a wave of steam that she stepped out of, dressed in nothing more than a bathrobe while her hair was wrapped in a towel. Blue Eyes couldn't help being slightly mesmerized by how beautiful she looked with her skin glistening from water that had yet to fully dry. Unknown to him, Verosica noticed his stare and internally smiled. She loved to tempt and tease. It was her nature. But seeing a genuine appreciation for her beauty was flattering on a different level. She couldn't explain it, but part of her wasn't keen on using her typical succubus tricks on the whisker-faced human sitting on her couch. She wanted to win him over naturally. Moving over to a vanity mirror resting on a makeup desk, she unwrapped her hair and attempted to brush it, getting it caught a few times in some knots, much to her frustration. She was so focused on her hair that she jumped when she felt a hand gently grasp her wrist holding the brush. "Here," she heard Naruto speak. "Let me help. You mind lying back on your recliner over there?" Curious about his request and enjoying his shy tone, she complied and sat in her recliner and leaned it back so that her hair hung over the edge. She saw Naruto grab the stool she had at her vanity desk and seat himself behind her. "My chaperone has some techniques that involve his hair. I overheard him complain about maintaining it a few times, and it got me thinking, if he uses chakra to reshape his hair, why not use it to style it?" She heard the strained tone in his voice when he referred to his so-called chaperone, but she didn't comment on it. She knew he must have been talking about the man who taught his father and was supposed to train him. So, she just relaxed and waited for him to try his chakra out on her hair. She trusted him not to ruin it, oddly enough. Something about Ninja Boy just made her trust in him so easily. Still, it caught her off guard when she felt a pleasant tingle from his fingers as they carefully ran through her locks, practically melting through the knots and smoothing her tresses with no effort. As for his chakra, she felt it move down her spine and through her body in a way that had her biting back a moan. She could tell he had no idea what he was doing to her, but his chakra was bringing her to a level of ecstasy that she was sorely tempted to take him. Fuck the consequences. Just like the first night when she made out with him after their heart-to-heart. She thought, fighting her instincts in favor of determining what she was feeling for the human driving her to climax with just his finger and chakra. I can't believe it. She was falling for him. Falling for a human she met solely on happenstance and invited to hell on a whim. But she couldn't help herself. He was just so earnest and kind, and he wanted to help people despite the shitty life he lived and the people who consistently wrote him off. Not to mention that he was fun to tease, his blushing face being especially adorable to her. He had a heart of gold that he wore on his sleeve, and she wanted that heart. She wanted him. By the time Naruto finished with her hair, Verosica was barely able to hold back her orgasm. It was another thing in his favor, his chakra, and how addicting it was to feel. She gave away nothing, though, as she got up and walked over to her mirror. "Holy shit," she gasped out, running her hands through her hair that looked so much fuller and framed her face beautifully. "I look fucking gorgeous." Feeling pleased with himself and how she reacted, Naruto unconsciously replied, "Yeah, you do." "Oh." She looked over her shoulder, her pink iris staring into his deep blues. "You really think so, Ninja Boy?" Despite the teasing tone, Naruto nodded sincerely. "Absolutely. I mean, you're already pretty, but you look amazing right now, you know?" He rubbed the back of his head sheepishly as he complimented her, his eyes closed as he laughed awkwardly. Because of that, he didn't see how her cheeks lit up at his honest admiration. "Damn you, Ninja Boy. You can't keep doing this to me." Anyway, Naruto spoke again, breaking her from her thoughts. "Was there something else you wanted me for? I want to take you on that fucking couch and have you screaming my name as I give you the ride of your life. You damnable sweetheart." Her instincts raged in her mind, but she didn't give voice to them. "I want you to spar with Tex again after we eat. I need to see if you've improved further from the previous one." "Gotcha. I'll go get ready then," he bid with a smile as he walked off. As soon as her door closed, Verosica shuddered and felt a wetness travel down her legs. "I'm in trouble," she spoke softly, referring to her raging instincts as a succubus. She just hoped she could hold back before doing something that ruins what she has with her Ninja Boy. The evening of Charlie's party had come. Wearing a more regal version of her typical red tux, she was nervously standing at the door of the mansion and greeting guests after the staff had taken their coats and announced their arrival. Next to her, Vaggie stood silently while dressed in a pretty dress that was colored the same shade of red. As much as she hated the idea of her being silenced, most noble demons didn't take kindly to being addressed by sinner demons. She turned slightly to give her an apologetic glance, but Vaggie simply smiled in understanding. She smiled back before noting that Vaggie's smile turned to a look of shock, prompting Charlie to turn around and match that shock when she saw the latest guest to arrive. Presenting Miss Verosica Mayday, the imp at the door informed the princess. Verosica was dressed in a single-strap black dress that had a dark orange scarf made of silk draped over her shoulders. A deliberate decision so that it matched the tie worn by a certain someone. And that someone was Naruto, who was looking around curiously while dressed in a black tux with a dark orange tie. He'd never worn anything like it before, and while it felt restricting compared to his normal clothes, he liked how it made him look more mature, and how it matched Verosica's outfit. Tex wore a tux, but the sleeves were deliberately ripped at the shoulders, and he wore no tie. He was here as a bodyguard, not as a guest. Well, Verosica began with a smirk, "A happy birthday to you, princess. 200 years old. Congrats." Charlie gave a polite smile and nodded. "Thank you, Miss Mayday, and welcome to our home. Appreciate it. Not every day a succubus like me gets to chat up the big wigs of hell." "And who's your escort?" Charlie asked curiously. Giving a polite bow, Naruto greeted, "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Charlie Heim." "Heim? Oh, sorry. Forgot that the suffixes I use aren't common. It means princess. I was referring to you by your title." "Huh. Never heard of that before. I'd love to hear more about the other suffixes, Naruto." Smiling, he replied, "I'd be happy to talk about them and anything else, Heim." She giggled at that and let them move on before greeting the next guest. However, her thoughts lingered on the human that was now a guest in her family's mansion. Stella sighed in annoyance after excusing herself from another noble who was more interested in Stolas than her. With everything that's happened, one could forgive her for giving less than two shits about any possible ventures her soon-to-be ex might partake in. She was more concerned about how Octavia was faring. Her daughter didn't have much experience in large social gatherings like this, especially one centered on the high class. Taking a sip of the wine in her hand, she walked through the large room where most of the guests were socializing, keeping an eye out for her daughter. When she bumped into someone, she normally would have told them off. However, contact with them made her do something she had never done for anyone before, not even Stolas. Her tail feathers presented themselves, showing off their design as she turned to who she bumped into. To her shock, it was a human, one who looked roughly the same age as Octavia. He was blonde with cerulean blue eyes and odd birthmarks on his cheeks that took the style of whisker markings. He was at least dressed for the occasion and gave her an apologetic glance. "Sorry about that, Mississippi. I was looking at the decorations and wasn't looking where I was going. Are you all right?" he asked in concern. He's the one, Stella thought in disbelief. The one who created that energy wave. If that's true, then that means... "Miss, are you all right?" he repeated, shaking her from her thoughts as she lowered her tail feathers and hid her embarrassment. "For fuck's sake, I can't believe I presented myself to him." She mentally berated herself before clearing her throat. "I'm fine. May I ask what an elemental is doing here in hell, especially when he's still alive?" "One, elemental? Isn't that a creature based around elements?" "I'm human, miss. I can see that, but you misunderstand. An elemental refers to the part of Earth that you hail from. Tell me, you're from the elemental nations, yes?" "Yeah. How did you know?" he asked back, surprised she knew. "Your part of Earth has been separated from the rest of the planet since its founding. Nobody knows why, but any contact from the world outside your own has never been established. That doesn't mean that those who perish don't share the same hell with the rest of the planet." "Huh, I never knew that. Thanks for telling me," he replied with a small smile, giving her a grateful bow. "Oh, I never introduced myself. Sorry about that." Clearing his throat, he continued, "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. It's nice meeting you, miss." "At least he's polite," she mused. "My name is Stella. I am part of the Ars Goishia family." Naruto gave her a kind smile before it turned to one of concern again. You seem a bit anxious about something, Goishia-san. Are you all right? She gave him a smirk at his question. A word of advice. Uzumaki. Look out for yourself before concerning yourself over others. Here in hell, the people aren't afraid of taking advantage of others being needlessly compassionate. Noted, but you never answer my question. Well, isn't he a bold one? She thought, keeping her smirk. I was searching for my daughter. She's not used to social gatherings like this. I'd be happy to help you find her, he offered. I was told to socialize by Verosica, and I don't mind helping you. Verosica? You mean that succubus girl who promotes sexual acts? Yeah, she's my employer currently. She offered me the option to come down here with her and her group, and I took it. You willingly came to hell? She asked with a raised brow. I know to many people it was probably a stupid idea. Incredibly so, she deadpanned. But I wasn't going anywhere back on Earth. I don't want to bother you with my troubles, so I'll just say that coming here was the best option for me and my future. Curious. Naruto perked up when he spotted someone and spoke. Is that your daughter over there? Looking to where he was staring, she indeed noticed Octavia walking around awkwardly. In her dark violet dress, Stella had to mentally praise once again how lovely her daughter looked. Clearly, she got her mother's good looks. Over here, dear, she called out calmly, getting her daughter's attention and waving her over. Dear, this young man is Naruto Uzumaki. He's a human from the elemental nations, a subgroup of humanity that can use an energy called Chakra. Octavia's eyes widened slightly at that, knowing that her mother was telling her that the human before her caused the energy wave that had a massive impact on her. She saw him give her a polite smile and bow. It's nice to meet you, he greeted. It's nice to meet you too, she replied, slightly awkward. She'd never interacted with a human before, let alone someone with such powerful energy. Uzumaki, this is my daughter, Octavia, Stella introduced. She's a potential heiress of the goishas. Sounds like you have a lot to live up to, he noted softly. If you don't mind some outsider advice? Intrigued, Octavia nodded her assent. Don't let the deeds of the people who came before you dictate how you should live. My father was hailed as a hero and a leader of my home village. I never knew him, and I was treated as a poor second coming of him. I decided to live as me, and not just as his son. Seeing the frown on his face as Naruto spoke of his father, Octavia wondered what happened to make him view the man so negatively. Still, she gave him a small smile and nodded her thanks for his advice, which she planned to take to heart. Thanks. I was wondering if I should be just another goishas, but I don't want to change who I am for people I've never met. Exactly. Don't let them decide who you are, Octavia. You are you, and that's all you need to be. With his piece said, he bid the two women farewell and nodded to someone behind them before he walked off, leaving the mother-daughter duo seemingly alone to contemplate his words. He's right, my owlet, a familiar voice spoke up, prompting them to turn and see Stella standing behind them. An heiress you may become, but never let that change who you are. You're our daughter, and nothing will change that. Smiling, Octavia replied, thanks, Dad. He smiled back before turning to Stella. Interesting how an elemental came to hell. A powerful one at that, too. He's unconsciously emitting his energy, and it's rather potent. I doubt he's aware of that fact, Stella replied as she took another drink of wine. He may have too much chakra for his body to fully withhold. What's chakra? Octavia asked. A life energy unique to those from the elemental nations, dear. It is a mix of their physical and spiritual energies. Is it strong? That depends on the individual, Stolas answered. But based on what I can feel from him, I can safely say that his power could potentially match an overlord as is. Whoa! The youngest goishas uttered in amazement. Chuckling, Stolas added, I doubt he'd go to the trouble of picking a fight. He's aware he's an outsider here, so I'm sure he won't want to make any waves. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he pulled it out to see he had a message from Blitzo. Taking a moment to look it over, he frowned at what he was reading before turning to his future ex and his daughter. I need to go. Something's come up. Will you be all right? Are you suggesting I can't look after our daughter, Stolas? Stella asked dangerously, not wanting to cause a scene. The man replied, not at all. I merely wanted to know if you wish for me to take you both home at this time, or if you wish to stay. Octavia replied, I don't want to leave yet. I'll need to get used to parties like this. Anyway, smiling at her, Stolas gave Octavia a brief hug goodbye before sharing a civil nod with Stella. With that done, he vanished in a magic portal and departed. Taking another drink, Stella suggested, Shall we go mingle, dear? Octavia nodded, but part of her was concerned when she saw Stella grab another goblet of wine from a passing imp carrying a trayful. She just hoped that her mother wouldn't overindulge. Charlie was despondent after receiving yet another rejection of support for the Happy Hotel. Vaggie tried to comfort her by patting her shoulder, and it was appreciated. But it was still hard to hear rejection after rejection. And while most were done politely, she could tell that they thought her goal was both a waste of time and foolish. She sat at a table that she shared with Vaggie, sadly watching the guests mingle and enjoy themselves. Her parents were speaking with Lady Gremory, who did express interest in Charlie's idea but refused to help until Charlie presented some success. 2. Something she was determined to do but found increasingly difficult without aid. It'll be all right, Han, Vaggie consoled her, grabbing her hand in support. Even if no one here supports you, we'll make the hotel work. We'll do it together. Charlie smiled gratefully to her, while wiping away a tear that almost fell. Thanks, Vaggie. Her girlfriend then perked up and muttered incoming. Interested, Charlie turned around and saw Naruto approaching with a friendly smile. Hello again, Haim. Mind if I take a seat? It's really awkward walking around and pretending not to notice people staring. I'll bet, Vaggie commented while Charlie offered him a seat. Name's Vagatha. I'm Charlie's girlfriend and partner. Nice to meet you, he replied before asking, What sort of partner? Vaggie nudged Charlie and nodded her head to Naruto. Getting the message, Charlie explained, We run a hotel in the Pride Ring, the Happy Hotel. It's meant to be a rehabilitation center for sinner demons. Rehabilitation? You mean rehab for sin? He clarified. Exactly. But nobody wants to offer their support to us, Vaggie noted with a deep scowl. Worse than that, they ridicule us for trying to make a difference here in hell and help sinners get to heaven. Wait a minute, he spoke up before turning to Charlie. So, you're the princess of hell, but your goal is to help demons go to heaven? Isn't that defeating the purpose of your role here? Charlie smiled and shook her head. You'd think so, but I'm doing this for my people. By helping them ascend to heaven, I not only give them a chance at peace, but I also am taking steps to stop the yearly purges here in hell. Fucking things. So many lives wasted each year. Vaggie bit out angrily. Purges? Naruto repeated, sounding confused but also concerned. Does that mean? Both women nodded grimly at his query. Charlie elaborated. If you're thinking that demons are killed off in droves each year, then you're correct. She gained a look that showed how disgusted she was about the subject. It's horrid. Families here in hell can be torn apart at random. And it's because the population here is too great to manage. Fuck, the Uzumaki gasped out with wide eyes before looking sympathetic to their plight. I'm sorry. So many people who already have to suffer here, just wiped out to deal with overpopulation. It sounds insane. Shaking his head, he gave Charlie and Vaggie a determined look before he asked, How can I help? His question caught them both by surprise. You want to help? Charlie asked in shock. Even though you don't need to do anything? Vaggie added, just as shocked. They saw him nod firmly. Absolutely. You're both doing something that has real meaning. I'll admit that I came here to hell with Verosika here because I felt like I wasn't going anywhere in my life. I want to be part of something worthwhile, a goal that means something. He then smiled warmly at them, earning a faint blush from Hell's princess for both his praise and how his smile brought out his natural appeal. And I think your goal is definitely worthwhile. Let me help, please. Charlie looked excited at his offer of support and turned to Vaggie to silently ask her opinion. The Salvadoran woman smiled at the excitement in her girlfriend's eyes and nodded her agreement. Charlie had a bright smile as she stood up, prompting Naruto to stand too. We would be so grateful to have you helping us, Naruto, she stated while holding out her hand. Here's to our future partnership. Naruto smiled back and grasped her hand, sharing a firm shake with her. Looking forward to it, Haim. You could just call me Charlie, she suggested without dropping her smile. Got it, Charlie Haim. He fired back, his smile becoming a small grin that she giggled at. Vaggie smiled at seeing Charlie's spirits lifted by one person offering his support. She knew that her girlfriend needed it. "Ladies and gentlemen," one of the servants called out, "we present to you all the cake." Most of the guests complimented and praised the towering bakery dish, spotting the top that had 3 candles that spelled out 200 on them. While they were distracted by the marvel, Naruto noticed one of the servants pushing the cart holding the cake slip, making the delicacy go off balance and fly up into the air. Naruto groaned at this and flared his chakra, earning the attention of everyone before he vanished in a blur of motion that snagged the knife from the cart and expertly sliced the cake into dozens of pieces. The singular blur became multiple as Naruto created shadow clones to grab plates and catch the slices of cake before staging them all on the throng of tables where the guests were seated, serving them all before the original Naruto reappeared in front of Charlie with the final piece, the one holding the 3 candles atop it. "Happy birthday, Charlie Heim," he bid with a smile, offering her the cake slice. Amazed at what he pulled off, Charlie took the plate and set it down before applauding for him. This kick-started the applause from the other guests, some of them even cheering for his actions. The praise made him smile at them all sheepishly and offer a bow to hide the awkwardness he felt. During it all, Verosika smirked as she uploaded the video of her ninja boy demonstrating his skills to the masses, posting it on her social media account while Vortex chuckled and shook his head. "Well, if nobody knew about a human here in hell, they sure will now, boss." "Absolutely," she replied, her smirk widening at the surge of upvotes her video received within moments, as well as the picture she sneakily took of Naruto and Charlie shaking hands. "Looks like Ninja Boy's gonna be making quite the name for himself here in hell." With Stella and Octavia, both were impressed by what they had witnessed. That deer is what Chakra can do for someone's physical prowess, as well as one of the techniques it can be used for in those copies of his. "Amazing," Octavia whispered before turning to her mother. "Can we invite him to the manor sometime? I want to learn more about his part of the world, and about him too." "I suppose it can be arranged," Stella replied casually, hiding her own interest in the elemental. Young, handsome, and full of potential based on the raw amount of energy at his disposal. "I'll find out what makes you tick, Uzumaki." Lucifer hummed to himself as he observed the elemental boy conversing so amicably with his daughter after that admittedly impressive display. It wasn't the first time he had seen an elemental in action, having met a few that had become sinner demons and were stuck in the pride ring. One in particular, a Madara Uchiha, was an impressive specimen, but entirely too prideful for his taste, especially when he had the foolish notion of challenging him during a family outing to pride. Safe to say, the former Uchiha was no more after annoying Lucifer too much. "Seems like Charlie has made a new friend," Lilith spoke up with a smile to her husband. "Indeed, I'm curious about the young man. After all, it's not every day that a human, and an elemental at that, comes down to hell before they've died." Lilith gave him a slightly exasperated look. "You're going to speak with him privately, aren't you?" "Oh, calm down. I won't kill the young man. I just want to get my own personal impression of him. Can you blame me? Just be sure to hold back on your power, dear." Charlie seems quite taken with this one, and I overheard him offering to help her with her hotel. "I make no promises," Lucifer replied with a smile as his eyes glowed. Meanwhile at IMP, Luna was browsing social media on her computer on one tab, while the other had the broadcast for Princess Charlie's birthday. She was bored after killing off that mouthy brat who had the fucking nerve to say he was a cat person. She raised a brow when the camera spotted another human in hell, and the other brow rose to join the first when she saw he was accompanying the Verosika Mayday, which was why she was browsing social media and Instagram. She paused when she saw earlier posts about the human, seeing pics of him hanging out with Verosika and her posse while sharing laughs with them all. Another picture had Verosika showing off her hair, while posting that it was all thanks to her ninja boy's magic fingers, an innuendo for sure, but the results spoke for themselves with how much fuller her hair looked. "I wonder if he could do the same thing to my fur," she thought aloud in amusement, still scrolling through the other posts. She paused when she saw a picture of Ninja Boy shaking hands with Charlie herself and sharing a smile with Hell's Princess, interested in what the gesture could mean for the future. She then noticed a new post and clicked it, only to have her eyes go wide when she saw what Ninja Boy was capable of when he carved the large cake into perfect slices and presented the crowning piece to Charlie. Not bad, she mused, wondering in the back of her mind if this human was responsible for that energy wave a few days ago. What she knew for sure was that Hell was in for some interesting times with this new guy in town.